Part 310. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3105. It turned out that inside the box Jia Yan opened, there was actually a Taoist heart that was larger than the one Jiji had won, at least 1/10 larger. At the city gate, the old man who retreated into the city suddenly showed a smile of success. The so-called one peach kills 3 servants actually has similar legends or records in all major worlds. In fact, it is very simple to take advantage of interests and sow discord. Such as now. Huh? Jia Yan, your Taoist heart is so huge, so it's not appropriate to divide it one person at a time. Chu Xing and Jia Yan were the hardest to deal with, and besides, he got the smallest one. If his skill was 1/10 smaller, he would get 1/18th smaller, which was quite uncomfortable for him. That's not what you said. When we took the box just now, didn't everyone agree? Jia Yan calmly took the box to his feet and looked at Chu Xing quietly. He and Chu Xing are old rivals, and they have fought and killed each other countless times. He doesn't mind if they come back 1 or 2 more times. Anyway, there don't seem to be many threats to their existence in this world. Chu Xing's expression became intriguing, but the twinkling light in his eyes gave him a slightly dangerous atmosphere. Dachan Lao observed the scene in the city and couldn't help but sneer. Sure enough, Xiao Xiao is Xiao Xiao, and his bandit style is very serious. The deputy next to him echoed, yes, no matter how powerful they are just guys who don't stand out in the group. Call out. A burst of energy pierced the air, stabbing the speaking deputy in pairs in one fell swoop. The word stopped abruptly, leaving old Dachan with a shocked expression. He looked at the deputy who fell to the ground, and then at Yun Danfeng's hands-on skills, and Mingzi remained silent. The deputy was wrong. As long as he is strong enough, even this kind of guy can definitely get on the stage. Okay, Chu Xing, Jia Yan, the 3 of us exist anyway. It would be disrespectful to have conflicts in front of a group of weak people. It's better to restrain ourselves first and talk later. Jia Yan nodded, while Chu Xing reluctantly looked at the box that Jia Yan placed tightly on the wings behind him, and finally sighed helplessly. If I don't get any benefits now, I'm afraid I won't get anything more next time. After these days, they finally understood Jia Yan's character. I'm just afraid that someone will take his life but not enjoy it. The speaker has no intention, but the listener has intention. Jia Yan's eyes moved, and he looked at Chu Xing meaningfully, but saw that the other party and Ji Qiao were deliberately not looking at him. It's obviously more of a problem. What's wrong? Jia Yan asked himself, and felt that he had been really weird these past 2 days. If I think about it carefully, I can't think of anything wrong. While he was still exploring his own question, Ji Qiao moved slightly, and Chu Xing quickly sensed something and raised his eyes to look at a certain direction in the sky. Jia Yan realized it later and was the last one to raise his head. Above the sky, there were overwhelming waves of air rolling down. Next to old man Dachan inside the city gate, a communications soldier rushed over with great joy and whispered something to him. Old man Dachan suddenly turned his attention to the place where the waves were surging. After taking a closer look at the turmoil in that area, especially after the bursts of electric arcs, old Dachan could no longer hide the happiness on his face and started to drink loudly. My subordinate, Dachan Lao of Pinkiu City, sincerely welcomes my master. Guru. Not only Jia Yan and others were slightly startled, but the masters of Pinkiu City who were detained by them and had not had time to let go were shocked when they heard this. The master is here in person. Haha, I didn't expect that the guru came so quickly. I don't know which guru it is. No matter which guru comes, not only are we saved now, but none of these little ones can escape. Well done. Welcome master. Jia Yan and the 2 men of the same rank looked at each other with twinkling eyes and exchanged warning signals. This master, judging by his breath alone, is quite good. How about it? The advantage in our hands is to stay and fight with him, or to leave first, digest the treasure, and then make a long-term plan. Jiqiao asked. At present, Jia Yan no longer has any conflicts with Chu Xing. In essence, their small conflicts cannot affect the main premise of mutually beneficial cooperation. Unless there are overwhelming benefits, it would be difficult to turn against each other because they are inherently hostile. If we can cooperate even if we are enemies, what other problems can destroy this relationship? There are only good things that are more attractive to them, otherwise it will be difficult. The two looked at each other. They were also hesitant. This aura doesn't seem to be completely impossible to deal with, but it is indeed much stronger than the likes of Dachin Lao. They wanted to try their skills with a local superpower, but the problem was that they were carrying a heavy treasure. What should I do if my baby is lost while typing? That's totally not cost-effective. That's all, I'll evacuate today. The two looked at each other. Jiqiao received their signal, nodded immediately, made a prompt decision, and rose from the sky. Since you have strong men rushing to help you, I will let you go today. Since Pingkao City has handed over its Taoist heart, the destruction of the city will be stopped. See you later. The three of them took off together, and with the mentality of being on guard against others, they all distanced themselves. Especially Jia Yan, who felt that he was not in the right state these past 2 days, so he kept farther away from the two of them. Want to leave? It's better to stay. And at this moment, the shocking aura that came, carrying an unparalleled speed, turned into an electric arc and fell from the sky. And the target turned out to be Jia Yan, who was in a vaguely weaker state than the two superpowers. The other party is also a discerning person and knows the principle of picking weak persimmons before pinching them. Hey, come to me. Jia Yan paused in his thoughts and soon showed a cruel smile. How long has it been since I experienced the feeling of being treated as a weakling? Now he is actually regarded as the weakest among the two at the same level. If we really get into a fight, it's not certain who will win between those two and me. He turned around directly and faced the strong man who suddenly came to him. In the blink of an eye, he had already used some kind of electric method. He used the power of the formation to fight hard with the opponent. Pyridine. The formation circle appeared out of thin air in an instant, and the light directly covered up the brightness of the sunlight above the head. In a flash, it collided head-on with the incoming arc, and then both of them retreated a long distance. So strong. The man in the arc looked serious indeed. As for the two startling rainbows in the distance, Jia Yan didn't care about the blocked Jia Yan at this time, and gradually moved away. There was also a faint joking laughter from the two men, telling Jia Yan to pay attention to his own safety. It seems that the relationship between the three villains is not as monolithic as others think. Visitor from outside the world, you have committed a serious crime in our dynasty, why don't you just surrender and be arrested? The expression of the strong man in the arc was not clear, but his tone was upright and solemn, imprinting on everyone's heart like the power of God. If you are not careful, you will follow this person's words and surrender. Follow your words. But who is Jia Yan? It is impossible to fall into the trap. Who is the dynasty? You still want to control me? It's ridiculous. Jia Yan sneered, staring at the other person, and then looked at the many powerful people from all over the world who were gradually surrounding him, thinking that if he was left alone, he would be able to take advantage of him. It seems that there is no way to escape the siege today. It just happened that he was still in a state where his mind was not very clear. But is Jia Yan afraid? Buzz. Groan. Call out. Jia Yan sneered. With the use of his brainwave power, a large number of formation circles built by mental power appeared throughout the world, like bamboo shoots after a rain. Immediately, it was overwhelming, and the number reached the peak level, which was probably the highest number after the creation of the formation path plus the power of yin and yang dao, second only to Aditya. There are tens of thousands of various formation powers. Oh, a very strange power. There is a vague sense of involvement with Tao, but the depth is far from it. The strong man in the electric arc examined the shocking blue light that surrounded them, and then nodded calmly. You and other aliens almost all fight with brute force. From my point of view, your methods are very different. If so, you will not be able to escape and be captured by my master today. Jia Yan laughed, you might as well give it a try. Although the state was not quite right, but he really wanted to fight, and when he went all out, those negative states seemed to dissipate, making his mind clear and no longer the muddled feeling. In other words, his combat effectiveness has not reached rock bottom at this moment. The being in the ark was silent and seemed to be aroused by Jia Yan's words. His body flashed and he charged forward with sparks and lightning. As soon as Jia Yan had a thought, hundreds of the power of the formation flew directly towards his body. The opponent's speed was obviously higher than Jia Yan's. Without the advantage of subspace talent, Jia Yan's speed in ordinary space is really not outstanding. I am afraid that even the first star and dexterity will be slightly better than him. Of course that is for the same level. Break, the figure in the electric arc shouted calmly, and the electric arc all over his body turned into a charged spear tip, piercing directly into the hundreds of formation circles. Puff puff. Sure enough, this person was so powerful that he broke through Jia Yan's dozens of circle formations and still managed to stop him. That's all. Jia Yan felt the opponent's strength, and his mental power suddenly moved. The power of the formation in the air solidified. It would not be so easy for the opponent to pierce the light of the next formation circle. But just when Jia Yan thought that the other party would be hindered by the power of his formation, the subsequent initiative was handed over to himself. Puff. The spear-like arc of electricity spread out and turned into countless lightning bolts traveling across the sky. Jia Yan was slightly stunned, because after the countless electric arcs melted away, there was no figure inside at all, as if the opponent's body did not exist. But the scene just now, Jia Yan saw clearly, the other party should be flesh and blood. At this time, the lightning dispersed, but there was no trace of it. The endless electric arc bypassed hundreds of formation circles, and instantly regrouped less than a few hundred meters away from Jia Yan, and suddenly formed a fist with electric fire, punching Jia Yan's giant mosquito head. Good guy, what kind of move is this? Jia Yan couldn't help but shudder at this unexpected fighting skill. But the instinctive reaction of being a strong person is still there. He raised one foot and made head-on contact with the opponent in an unpretentious manner. Huh! When the opponent's fist fell, he felt endless obstacles, as if what he hit was not some tiny creature, but a super strong man of the same level. The fist exploded back, and the opponent's arc figure was condensed again more than 1,000 kilometers away. Jia Yan also stepped back more than 2,000 kilometers with an ugly expression. He looked at his feet, which were covered with arcs of electricity. Even the azure defense on his toes was shot out, causing some cracks. Powerful. This is the evaluation of both sides. Your Excellency, you are what the outside world calls the lower rank of a domain lord. The guru was silent for a moment, stepped forward, and spoke at the same time. That's right. I wonder, my friend, what level of strength are you in this world? Jia Yan calmed down, knowing that this opponent might not be as easy to deal with as those other world beings he had seen before. I hold the status of guru in the dynasty. Even within the dynasty, I can be regarded as one of the few masters. I wonder if among you foreigners, the lower level of the territory lord can be considered powerful. It is powerful. Boom. The two top masters fought again in mid-air. Endless terrifying power swept across the sky, causing air waves to cover the sky and the sun. Even the gate of Pinkaio city not far away was crumbling, and there was a vague risk of the city wall collapsing. You know, this is a city wall 100,000 kilometers high. This can actually be considered as equal to the master. Who is this? Inside the city gate, old Dachin's eyes nearly popped out of his sockets. I just heard intelligence that a royal master happened to be nearby and had already arrived after receiving their call for help. He also believed that the matter had been decided, and with the guru personally taking action, these three young people would definitely not be able to escape. Unexpectedly, not only did the two escape, but the remaining one who seemed to be the weakest stayed behind and fought to a draw with the pursuing master. This is not Xiao Xiao, he is basically a king-level expert. No, that mysterious strong man seems to be at a loss for the master's Tao attack. Old Dachin's eyes quickly lit up again. Not only him, but also the eyes of many powerful people around who were anxious and worried also brightened up. They stared at the battlefield with burning eyes. Even the weak ones who were not at the level of domain lords also discovered the clues. That little master who seems to be extremely powerful seems to be at a loss for the master's Tao attack. What kind of attack is this? Puff. Jia Yan swept out with one foot, but all he got was electric sparks all over his body. The opponent's figure turned into an arc of electricity in an instant, as if it was swept into the air, unable to cause any harm to him at all. His face became serious. In an instant, the eyes of the strong man in the arc who had wandered 2,000 kilometers away and looked at him with strange eyes met, each looking vaguely thoughtful. I didn't expect that you, a visitor from outside the world, would still be so ignorant of the Tao after reaching such a state. The arc powerhouse said calmly. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3106. Jia Yan felt a headache. He also didn't expect that his attack would seem to be non-existent to the other party. If you can't hit it, how can you defeat it? This is a bit troublesome. He was not in a hurry. His past experiences in the other world, as well as the solutions to every incident he encountered in his past life, all told him, the strong are the strong, and there cannot be anything that even the lower-level territory lords can attack ineffectively. Unless the opponent is a strong man who surpasses the lower level of the domain lord. But judging from the simple fighting process, this so-called guru is obviously not that kind of existence. There must be some way. Huh, is it true? Jia Yan calmly looked at his opponent who had transformed into an electric arc again, feeling relaxed. How? This is the way. You must be from the outside world and have never heard of my dynasty's stunts. It's not that I haven't heard of it before. It's just that the sharp contrast between you and the so-called Tao that those guys mastered in the past has given me a new perspective. Jia Yan felt that some of the suspicions and thoughts that he had just seen and heard in his heart gradually turned into some substantive thoughts. Then take a closer look. The opponent knew that Jia Yan could not admit defeat, so he turned into a slender beam of lightning again and attacked Jia Yan at lightning speed. But Jia Yan only lightly used his mental power, and the power of the formation that was still in the air swept over overwhelmingly. As I said, this item is ineffective against me. The figure in the electric light suddenly changed speed and bypassed the coverage of dozens of formations. That's not necessarily true. Jia Yan's eyes suddenly became serious. Snap! Among the power of the formation, 10 of them suddenly turned into a huge ring that covered the sky and swallowed up everything within a radius of 100,000 kilometers at a speed that ordinary people could not react. Including the opponent's arc figure. What kind of method is this? In such a huge range, struggling was in vain. The master knew that the power of only 10 formations could not cause huge harm to him, so he simply gave up dodge and took advantage of Jia Yan's distracted operation of the formation. The figure suddenly came arriving in front of Jia Yan. He was betting on whether Jia Yan would trade his injuries for injuries. Injuring the enemy by 1,000 and damaging yourself by 800 is something no normal strong person would be willing to do. In this way, he can seize the moment's advantage and completely dominate this battle in an instant. This completely determines the chance of victory. Gamble? In this next life, I will be a real gambler. If I want to bet, I won't be sleepy. Jia Yan's reaction was beyond the other party's expectations. He was not afraid, his feet flashed with azure light, and he collided directly with his approaching figure. This time the two sides met. Jia Yan clearly felt that the other party's figure solidified for an instant. If he wants to attack me, he must turn into a physical entity, or is there something else going on inside? Jia Yan had tried the so-called Tao long before he came back to the other world. Over the years, he had often gone over and over with ideas and guesses. Now that he once again encountered someone who was attacking with Tao power, and who was also the top powerhouse in the world, he had more imagination about the so-called Tao. Puff. In the moment when the two attacked and defended, Jia Yan's azure defense turned into a shocking shield, and the opponent's body carried endless thunder power, which was by no means ordinary. Both sides were equally divided. The opponent was indescribably surprised that Jia Yan's close combat power was so terrifying. From the perspective of a master in this world, a person who is strong can only be strong in a certain aspect. Since Jia Yan is strong in the so-called power of formations, he cannot be strong in close combat. But obviously, Jia Yan is an unexpected existence. He was not specialized in the power of formations to begin with. Although he is not good at melee combat, he is still good enough. You can't escape. Just when the two of them met and exchanged a real blow, Jia Yan's foot cracked more seriously and the opponent's body was slightly damaged. Jia Yan's eyes suddenly lit up. The huge power of the 10 formations suddenly came down. The timing was very clever, trapping the opponent directly to make the moment virtual and real. Pyridine. The bloody disaster emerged, leaving 10 huge wounds of different sizes on the surface of the master's body, and the positive and negative explosive force carried by the power of the formation remained inside his body, continuing to cause damage. This local strong man had an extremely ugly look on his face. He retreated hundreds of thousands of kilometers away with great difficulty, staring seriously at the alien visitor who used the power of the formation. There has never been such a subtle ability in the skills used by the aliens. Are you actually the aliens? He was shaken. Based on his understanding of the extraterrestrial visitors, it is absolutely impossible for the extraterrestrial visitors to emerge as powerful as the one in front of him, who possesses delicate and mysterious powers. Visitors from outside the world, to the local masters of cultivation in the inner world, seem to be people who do not understand skills and only understand the existence of brute force. But the man in front of him mastered the non-brute force skills that caused him injuries. I just called you a visitor from the outer world. He was injured, and now you are suspicious. Are there all people in your dynasty who are as unclear as you? Jia Yan chuckled. From the beginning to the end, he never admitted any claims from extraterrestrials. The other party just forced his name on him, and as he talked, he began to doubt himself. Do you want so much psychological drama? Don't be excited, my master's power has also left damage on you. Jia Yan fell silent. What I have to admit is that the Dao power attack and combat skills in this world are indeed far superior to the cosmic cultivation skills. He had 2 head-to-head confrontations just now and was unable to enter the subspace. He suffered hidden injuries due to Dao power. It can be said that the two did fight to a draw, and both were injured. The reason is all because they don't understand each other. The next time we fight, it may be hard to say whether we will win or lose. I remember you, Imperial Master, right? You're quite interesting to me. I'll definitely tell you the next time I see you. Jia Yan snorted coldly, turned around, and turned into a rainbow. The power of the formation that had not exploded quickly came to his feet, bursting apart one by one, superimposing and advancing his speed, and suddenly flew tens of millions of kilometers. Go away. Master, do you want to chase me? Behind him, several experts from Pinkaio City asked cautiously. I saw a small black dot in the distance looking coldly at the sky. The master shook his head. I'm afraid it will be difficult to tell the winner if we catch up. Moreover, I can feel that this person is not very afraid of me. Instead, he is worried about the two departing aliens. Everyone was shocked. Only then did he realize that Xiao Xiadu, who escaped at the end, was so terrifying. Aren't the other two even more powerful? The one-on-one guru was fighting like this. If the other two joined the battle group to besiege the guru. Suddenly, many people's faces turned pale. That's all. If I stay in Pinkaio City for a few days, let's see where these foreign visitors go. Thank you, Master. Everyone in Pinkaio City quickly thanked him with gratitude. This is sincere. No matter whether they will be held accountable for losing this battle in the future, at least now, they are really afraid that the three of them will leave and come back. With the guru, at least I feel more confident. Buzz. Puff puff. Hearing the roar that penetrated the air, Jia Yan's eyes were solemn and serious. The damage caused by the power inside his body was not too serious, but it was very disturbing. He doesn't understand Tao power, so it's difficult to deal with it. He can only wait for it to disappear automatically. But the so-called guru may be in a similar situation to me. He doesn't understand the power of my yin-yang dao and formation dao. Those minor injuries are enough to keep him busy for a while. Jia Yan did not underestimate himself. No matter how much he didn't understand the cultivation techniques of the other world, he couldn't even say he lost the battle just now. At best, it's a tie. If the fight continues, he should have a better chance of winning. But just as the master said, what he was worried about was not the outcome of the battle, but Chuxing and Jiji. Those two guys didn't have a solid alliance agreement, let alone a friendly relationship. If they find the opportunity, it should be impossible to kill him, but the possibility of adding insult to injury is not small. Although they still need my subspace talent to escape from the other world, it is not absolute. Besides, if they find a chance to capture me alive, there are many ways to make me half dead and become a tool for them to enter and exit. So Jia Yan was more worried about those two people. Of course, it is more just his own vigilance. No one can guarantee whether this will actually be the case. The departure method used by Jia Yan is another way to develop the explosive thrust of the array. The entire array technique is like a mine containing extremely rich treasures. He is now developing many new and effective things every day. In the battle just now, many new techniques were used for the first time, and the results were good, which made Jia Yan very satisfied. When he was perfecting the power of the formation, Jia Yan absorbed many formation techniques, among which Edisha contributed the most. Now Jia Yan's formation power has many shadows of Edisha, and these things are often perfect. And requires powerful computing power. Of course the effect is also very gorgeous. Just now, he enveloped everyone at the same level and caught them off guard. The power of the formation is still too immature. If it is perfected and the skills are mature, I am afraid that even if I didn't understand the so-called power of the other party just now, I can force him to the outside world and not get even close to me. Jia Yan was a little regretful. If he had waited a few more days to become more proficient in the power of the formation, and then entered the other world, the battle just now would not have been like this. He will win. That's all, so what if we defeat a top local strongman? I'm afraid it's still difficult to kill. No matter how strong he is, he can't beat the combination of Chuxing and Jiji. There is no fundamental change. Jia Yan flew towards them for a long time. This time he planned to distance himself from those two people and contact them again later. Because the harvest from blackmailing Pinkaio City is not small. The Dao heart he obtained was the largest, and the effect of this Deo heart was at least several times stronger than the part of the Deo heart he had devoured before. All three of them have enough to digest for several days. Ji Jiao and Chu Xing must have the same idea, as they will lose contact with each other these days. Huh. Suddenly, while feeling the Taoist heart and healing, Jia Yan's expression moved. He looked down at the ground. Many familiar scenes came into view, and the brilliance in his eyes became more and more intense. Haha, as I said a long time ago, this place is very close to the location where I entered the inner world from the realm of gods. At this time, I have been running around in the inner world for many days, and finally I am really close to my old place again. Jia Yan was a little surprised and a little happy. The scenery on the ground became more and more familiar in his eyes, because he had entered the area where he first came to the other world. I wonder what happened to those old friends from back then. He found the location and flew directly there. When he first wandered into the other world, he was nothing more than a giant mosquito a few kilometers in size. Now the size of his body has exploded countless times, and his height has increased from a few kilometers to 50 kilometers. The various crises and hardships at the beginning are no longer a problem for him now. After arriving here, he had more of a feeling of nostalgia rather than a desire for revenge. To say that there is no such thing is not entirely true. I didn't see it before, but now that I have seen it, it is natural to repay hatred and repay kindness. Jia Yan quickly denied his remarks. Huang Tian paid off. He quickly recognized the mountainous area where he first came to this world among the huge mountain scenery. All kinds of scenes immediately brought back his memories. Haha, I landed there at that time, but when I appeared, I was almost picked up by a bat. Now what about the bat? If I see him again, I will slap him to death. Jia Yan fell to the ground. But at the same time, he did not show his teeth and claws as much as he thought, but restrained his aura as much as possible. Many creatures clearly saw him falling, but they seemed to have not seen it and turned a blind eye. Jia Yan did not forget that he was an enemy of the dynasty and was injured. He found the location and flew directly there. When he first wandered into the other world, he was nothing more than a giant mosquito a few kilometers in size. Now the size of his body has exploded countless times, and his height has increased from a few kilometers to 50 kilometers. The various crises and hardships at the beginning are no longer a problem for him now. After arriving here, he had more of a feeling of nostalgia rather than a desire for revenge. To say that there is no such thing, it's not necessarily true too. I didn't see it before, but now that I have seen it, it is natural to repay hatred and repay kindness. Jia Yan quickly denied his remarks. Huang Tian paid off. He quickly recognized the mountainous area where he first came to this world among the huge mountain scenery. All kinds of scenes immediately brought back his memories. Haha, I landed there at that time, but when I appeared, I was almost picked up by a bat. Now what about the bat? If I see him again, I will slap him to death. Jia Yan fell to the ground. But at the same time, he did not show his teeth and claws as much as he thought, but restrained his aura as much as possible. Many creatures clearly saw him falling, but they seemed to have not seen it and turned a blind eye. Jia Yan did not forget that he was an enemy of the dynasty and was injured. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3107. The woman named Yulita from the original small human tribe helped me heal my wounds and helped me walk out of this mountain forest. This is a favor and must be repaid. Jia Yan pondered for a moment. The kindness of the little human race is not that great, but now that he can easily repay it with his strength, he can't go so far and turn a blind eye. But this also requires him to digest the injuries and benefits. Gurgling. Gurgling. confused. Inside Jia Yan's body, a large number of evolved beasts devouring power unfolded, launching a life and death attack against the master's power that invaded his body. So that's it? Is the power of Tao actually like this? Jia Yan nodded. When I came to this world for the first time, I was unfamiliar with the place, my strength was not strong enough, and my understanding of the power of Tao was vague. But this time when I revisited my old place, I captured all the weak ones who lack strength. Their understanding was enhanced, but because the weak people's Taoist power was too mixed, they only had half-understood understanding. This time it happened that it was the Guru who sealed the power into his body. This person's power is earth-shattering, comparable to that of the lower-level domain lords like us. The power sealed inside my body is extremely pure, just enough for me to comprehend. Jia Yan smiled. This is the saying that good fortune and misfortune depend on each other. Of course, if it were a strong person below the lower level of territory lord, or even another lower level territory lord, the recovery power would be far weaker than Jia Yan, so this matter would not be a good thing. Jia Yan made an estimate. With my evolved beast's recovery ability, I'm afraid it will take 3 to 5 days and all my strength to expel these forces. It just so happens that during this period, let's take a look at the affairs of the little humans. Jia Yan Gujing Buobo's calmness sealed away most of his mental power, and while he was going all out to practice in seclusion, an extremely small figure suddenly walked out from under the wings behind him. This is a male figure from Earth who is only about 1.75 meters tall. He has jet black hair and bright eyes. Although he is not extremely handsome, he is also majestic. It is the Earthling's own clone, Black God, who Jia Yan added a beauty filter to. Did you give me spiritual power? Black God Jia Yan looked at the giant mosquito under his wings and yawned greatly. The relationship between the clone and the real body is sometimes like a community, but sometimes it is like an independent individual. It seems like he is an independent individual now. Cough. The human body, as small as a giant mosquito but as small as a flea, flew straight out of the cave. For humans, this tree hole is enough for countless people to live. The height of the trees, which are tens of thousands of kilometers long, is equivalent to half of the earth. After the black god flew out, he was dumbfounded and his eyes were straight. He naturally knows the information from the real body. But Kurakama, who has maintained some of his own personality, still has personal emotions. Tisk, tisk, trees as big as 10,000 kilometers, this mountain forest is as big as hundreds of millions of kilometers, maybe hundreds of millions of kilometers, it's so big that it's boundless. He marveled for a moment. Groan. Suddenly, in the air, a large number of various creatures, slightly larger than the black god Jia Yan, flew directly to him and launched a brutal attack. When Ming Ming's true body was flying in the air, he never felt so many life forms. Is this a bacteriophage-like bacterium? Jia Yan paused, dumbfounded again. No wonder, in this world, the black god's clone is like a small bacteria. It's not that the real body can't feel this kind of creature, but at least he won't deliberately go there. Feel the bacteria. Puff. With one stroke of his sword, Black God's attack directly turned large swaths of bacteria into nothingness. But these phages are still endless, like death squads unwilling to devour him. I don't have time to play with you. The Black God Jia Yan ignored these little guys, developed his strength and flew towards the earth. He was a little worried whether those larger creatures would regard him as prey. In this world, the strength of his Black God clone seems to be a bit lacking. Although he is definitely not a weakling, there are still many people who can defeat the Black God clone. However, it turns out that he thought too much. When he was about to fall to the ground, several kilometer-sized insects flying around in the woods ignored his presence and went straight to prey on other kilometer-sized creatures. That's right. Compared with other creatures that are at least 1 kilometer in size, his height of 1.75 meters is not even enough to fit between the teeth. It hurts to look at it. Who would want to prey on it? Ignore it at all, or the insects cannot see the bacteria. Jia Yan didn't know whether he should be angry or grateful. In short, these guys ignored him. Even if he turned on the fast flight mode, he was regarded as a faster flying bacteria and still ignored. There's something inexplicably irritating about it. Speaking of which, if you really want to care about the strength of this Black God clone, it has also improved after mastering the inheritance of the power of the formation. As long as the relationship between the clone and the real body is not talent-based, such as subspace talent, other combat experience and training experience can still be inherited. The inheritance may not be perfect. After all, the size of a human body is different from that of a giant mosquito, including the appearance and attack mode. But that is still the experience of a powerful person in the lower realm of the territory lord. This is even more true for the formation path. After all, it only uses mental power. The spiritual power, which is in the same line as the real body, makes the two actions almost indistinguishable. It means that my clone's mental power cannot be used too much, otherwise it will be no different from the real body doing it in person. A blue light suddenly appeared under the Black God's clone's feet. After it burst open, his speed increased by more than 10 times. After a while, he came to a vast open space. This open space should have been lush and green, with a large area of small humans establishing their homes here. At this time, it was like a ruin, even the trees had fallen down and turned into scorched earth. Sure enough, he was attacked. Jia Yan shook his head. Those little humans, when I came here before, I remembered that their strength seemed to be good, but when I came here for the second time, I recalled that their strength was probably not that strong in the mountains and forests. He doesn't even have the strength of the Domain Lord level, and at most he has the strength of the galaxy level. How can he gain a foothold in this mountain forest full of powerful people? I'll go look over there. I can't give up just because I know they've disappeared. As early as just now, the real body had used brainwave power to explore this place. Black God also expected the scenery of ruins. So he wanted to fly to a place where his real body's mental power could not be expanded to see if he could find some clues. If there is a chance, I would like to let the real body go to the hiding places of those former subordinates to see how the old friends are doing. The power of the formation under Black God's feet continued to explode. Anyway, the spiritual power of his real body was constantly being sent to him. It was like there was an infinite treasure house of spiritual power, and he squandered it unscrupulously. Under the ground, there was a figure, and suddenly he saw the glimmer of light in the sky that was so small that it was difficult to see. With a figure of 1.7 meters, even if the bursting power of the formation is 10 meters wide, the brilliance of the explosion of this little bit of formation power is just a passing cloud in the eyes of creatures that are often several kilometers in size. But someone discovered it? Is there something burning in the air? It burned instantly. It must be because my eyes are hallucinating. You have floaters. Well, that's right. It's because I have floaters. Alas, this body is getting worse every day. When can I leave this world? The creatures below actually speak the lingua franca of the galaxy. Black God looked at the mountains and forests below with contentment. The speed at this time made him very comfortable. After all, his real power was only at the level of the venerable. With the spiritual power from his true body and the understanding of the power of the formation, he could directly push. His strength has reached the Domain Lord level, and this feeling of rapid advancement is still very comfortable. It can also be said to be heroic Qianyungxia. He scampered through the area. There was a vaguely familiar feeling on the ground in that area just now. How about going back and taking a look? But just when he completely missed the interlocutors on the ground, he seemed to remember something and looked directly at the area behind him. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to fly back to the area. After some investigation, I found out what things actually evoked a sense of familiarity in me. Maybe it's a small human race. Because he was worried that predators would suddenly appear, or grass would suddenly stick out, he would maintain his flight altitude at 5,000 kilometers. Although this altitude was not high, and there would occasionally be trees blocking the way, it could still be considered a high altitude. Cruising at ultra-low altitude is enough to detect the movement under your feet. It sounds like a 50-meter cruise. Black God felt a little unreal about his chaotic data consciousness. But he quickly calmed down his emotions, and finally flew to the area where he had just felt a little familiar. Sure enough, this familiar feeling appears again. His consciousness became slightly solemn and he searched carefully. It's not like a small human race, but a longer consciousness. It has been so long that it should not be the familiar feeling belonging to the Black God's clone. From the real body. What exactly is it? Black God's black hair was blowing in the wind in mid-air, and his slightly proud figure was looking at the space below, surrounded by a swarm of phages and various tiny bacteria. Finally, he flew slowly in the familiar direction and found a small creature on the ground that seemed to be frightened. In other words, this so-called insignificance is comparable to this mountain forest. Several creatures less than 10 kilometers in size. It's very small, almost similar to a scarab beetle or a small insect. And the sense of power they exuded gave Jia Yan a strong sense of familiarity. Not a creature from this forest. Wrong. He was slightly surprised. This sense of power is not only a creature that is not from this mountain forest, it is not even a creature from this world. Black God Jia Yan's face showed a hint of inquiry. He immersed himself in his heart, felt it a little, opened his eyes, and said strangely, "Is a strong man from the realm of gods. The great realm of gods. I don't know how long ago it was a term. A long time ago, Jia Yan was only a star-level powerhouse. Not to mention the Black God clone, he has never been to the central star field of the Milky Way, and has never seen the Zerg Queen and others. It can be said that it belongs to a place where Jia Yan has been in a relatively weak level era. Now, the clone has discovered such a group of life forms that carry the aura of the great realm of gods. Are they beings who have practiced the cultivation skills of the divine realm, or are they really from the divine realm?" Black God Jia Yan became curious and quietly landed. Although it is said that this group of cultivators who possess the aura of the great realm of gods are nothing more than tiny creatures in the mountains and forests. But for the bodies of humans on Earth who are 1.7 meters tall, their bodies, which are several kilometers in size, are absolutely gigantic. The Black God Jia Yan was so huge that he held his breath and concentrated all his aura. When it floated not far above their heads, these beings had not noticed the arrival of the Black God. "Oh, I really miss my old home. Stop talking, it's just these few words that I keep repeating over and over every day. If you're not annoyed, I'm already annoyed. What did you say? Don't you miss it?" These two lines of dialogue made Jia Yan understand that this group of life forms with vastly different cultivation abilities were creatures from the Milky Way. Otherwise, how could he say the words home? Stop arguing. Every time we talk about the past, you two argue. Now I am a creature of this mountain forest. Only by living well can I have a chance to return to my hometown. A speaker stops the brawlers from speaking. Jia Yan felt that this blocker should be the leader of the 7 divine realm creatures present. He was very powerful, about the peak of the mid-level star. Others also have stellar primary levels. In other words, they are similar in strength to Jia Yan, who first came to the other world. Could it be that they, like their original true forms, inexplicably broke into the other world from the realm of gods? Black God Jia Yan was astonished. In the days when he first came out of the other world, he recalled the events of this world several times. He quickly determined that the huge world he thought at the beginning should be in the very depths of the subspace, and that there should be some kind of mutation in the subspace on the other side of the great realm of gods, which allowed him to be at a specific time and a specific place. Break into it? Unexpectedly, that subspace anomaly is not a unique accidental state, but a normal state? Otherwise, why are there so many strong people living here? After his thoughts moved, he quickly became extremely passionate. Because when he left the other world, he realized the unique space distortion in this area of the other world, and thus broke out of this space through the subspace talent bonus. If the situation is as expected, there is a unique connection between this place and the area of the spirit realm. Doesn't it mean that he can repeat his old tricks again and break out of the other world normally through this distortion? No. If that weird distortion always exists, I won't even be able to come in. In other words, will I be able to come and go freely? In an instant, Black God Jia Yan's eyes lit up. But whether it is as he expected, one has to ask those with experience. The target is exactly this group of guys from the realm of gods. The way they came together as a group was certainly not natural. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3108. Are you from the great realm of spirits? When several masters of the great gods and realms were chatting among themselves, this strange voice suddenly came to their ears. Who? They looked around with sudden excitement. Which lord is actually hiding around us? Master? We can't see where he is. This group of experts was at the star level after all, but no one noticed the earthling Jia Yan flying in front of them. Jia Yan was a little speechless. This group of strong men from the spirit realm had become accustomed to the enormity of the other world. They turned a deaf ear to him who was at the level of bacteria. After all, there were too many bacteria and it was impossible to scan them all with mental strength. I'm right in front of you. Huh? This is... What a small creature. Are there such small creatures in this world? No, the energy fluctuations on his body are obviously not local energy. Could it be? The seven powerful men looked at each other, and then their faces showed expressions of ecstasy. Are you from the outside world? Tell me honestly how you came to this world, and I will spare your life. It's probably because I haven't interacted with the creatures in the original world for a long time. When they threaten people, they are a little unfamiliar. Buzz. Jia Yan calmly released dozens of formation powers. Although the energy level he used could not be as powerful as his real body, the intensity of each formation was the peak that his black god body could withstand. As a result, the power of the formation was superimposed on his black god's unique power, covering the area instantly. The 7-star level powerhouses are said to be extremely powerful. When the black god created the world, he had to work hard to defeat any one of them. However, time has passed, the main body has become stronger, and the black god clone has also become stronger. The 7-star levels are no longer any threat to him. Give me a restraint. Pudgy. A series of sounds came, and 7 muffled sounds came out in response. The 7-star level stars were filled with disbelief, and were even in a state of panic. 1 or 2 of them were caught off guard and were completely trapped by the power of the formations. The clone is not yet able to defeat a star with 1 formation, but he possesses nearly unlimited mental power. After dozens of formations, he can always tie the star to death. This group of masters from the Milky Way galaxy really felt messy in the wind. If they were unable to dominate this unfamiliar world, but they could easily capture the creatures in front of them who were clearly life forms in the galaxy, that would be a huge blow to their self-confidence. You must know that from their senses, the strength of this strong man has reached the venerable level or half-star level at most. And such a being actually captured 7 of their stellar powerhouses alive. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a fantasy. Okay, I don't have that much time to tangle with you and others. If you want to survive, just tell me honestly how you entered this world. The other world? Isn't this the dynasty? Why is it called the other world? The 7 people were confused about the name of the other world. That's right, in the other world, no one claims to be from the other world. At least in this area, they all claim to be under the rule of the dynasty. The other world is the land beneath our feet. Jia Yan smiled enigmatically. Senior, it's true that we come from the outside world, but we enter this world for various reasons, and there is no way. The mid-level star's eyes flashed as he said these words. Jia Yan looked at him, but couldn't see anything wrong in the other person's expression. After all, he is also a star-level master, so it is normal to be able to remain calm. But Jia Yan didn't hesitate at all. My friend, I don't need to say this anymore. My understanding of the other world is far beyond your imagination. If you say that you can enter the other world together under ordinary conditions, I will never believe it. If one could break into a subspace of more than 10 degrees and a mere star level casually, the world there would be too open, and it would be impossible for countless people to search for the method of entry for so many years. According to the probability of problems in subspace, generally within a year, the entire galaxy can produce 1 or 2 strong men who occasionally enter the subspace, which is as high as the sky. The fact that strong men from the same star field appeared here together can only mean that they have mastered some kind of entry method. Well, the 7 people looked at each other, and after a few glances, the mid-level star man gave a wry smile. It doesn't matter, we are already in this world at risk, so there is no need to keep any secrets. He said eloquently, as early as decades ago, our spiritual realm encountered an enemy who, although not very strong, had subspace talent. During the capture operation, the strong man actually disappeared deep in subspace. So, many strong men in my spiritual realm started research and finally found a passage into the mysterious world. However, this passage was extremely unstable. After sending in thousands of low-level strong men of various types, we were finally 7-star level people entered. Only after entering this place did we realize that this world is actually like the real world, and the strength of the creatures inside is far beyond that of the outside world. Jia Yan frowned and asked with some unfinished thoughts, that's it? Yes, this is the reason why we entered, and the whole process. For decades, we have been adventuring in this mountain forest to survive. We have experienced life and death several times. Finally, we all survived, but we also lost the way to return to the galaxy. All 7 people showed bitter expressions. One of the first-level star warriors had the courage to plead, "My lord, if you have a way to go back, please point out a clear way. I will definitely be richly rewarded in the future. Even if it takes my wealth, I am willing." Several people were moved and began to plead. Jia Yan was silent for a moment, thinking about whether all the words of these guys were true. But presumably, they have no need to deceive themselves, let alone the courage to deceive themselves. After all, in their opinion, the strength to be able to detain all of them with one move must be above the galaxy level. It is normal to have insight into their hearts. I'm sorry, I don't have a way to go back, but we are from the same hometown after all. If you are willing to work for me, I can consider taking you back together when I find a way to return to the galaxy in the future. Thank you, sir, we are willing to work for you. All the stars didn't even hesitate and gave up. Although in their eyes, Jia Yan's clone is just a tiny creature like a bacterium, its strength is real. Working for such a strong man is rare in the galaxy, let alone in this precarious and huge primitive forest. They were almost desperate for survival. And working under such a strong person who can enter and leave the mountains and forests at will, at least the safety performance is guaranteed, right? Maybe we can find more benefits about this world and turn the crisis into a huge opportunity. Jia Yan smiled meaningfully and accepted the worship of these masters. He also has Xiaojuju in his heart. Although he didn't think that these guys dared to lie to him, from their words, Jia Yan believed that he still had to verify more things. For example, they say that the enemy they are chasing strays into this world. That enemy couldn't be said to be the original Jia Yan, right? Counting the time, a few decades ago, it was indeed about the same. If the two incidents are involved, then the probability of me entering and exiting this world freely will be much greater. Jia Yan knew that he had sensed some kind of subspace disorder, so he broke through the boundary and left. This time he was also in this area and felt that the subspace was quite chaotic and seemed to be close to the edge of the other world. First of all, you will take me to the area where you are coming. Not to mention that you have forgotten it. It has only been a few decades. It must not be difficult for the memory of a star-level powerhouse. Yes. Of course I remember it. The 7 stars were naturally very willing to serve Jia Yan. Several masters quickly led the way, with Jia Yan following behind. In fact, in the past few decades, they have not broken out of the mountains and forests, or explored anything. They just hold on to a glimmer of hope and want to find a way to return to the Milky Way where they came from. So this place is not far from where they arrived. Originally, these 7 people had to avoid several dangerous areas, such as places with powerful creatures, and it would take them 3 or 4 days to return. But this time, after hearing their reasons, Jia Yan directly ordered them to rush back in a straight line. This move naturally angered several creatures in dangerous areas, a powerful creature as big as a few mice, and 2 large pythons. The size of hundreds of kilometers makes the 7-star classes tremble. Although the rats and pythons are only about the strength of the galaxy class, it is not easy for their junior and middle class stars to be able to escape several times, let alone defeated. However, in the hands of Black God Jia Yan, these so-called crises were just like play. A large amount of formation power rushed out in no particular order, trapping all these mice and pythons to death on the ground. What are you waiting for? Just complain if you have any complaints. After receiving Jia Yan's promise, the masters of the 7 great gods and realms who had been bullied quickly stepped forward and fought with the suppressed rats and pythons. It's true that he comes from the realm of gods. Jia Yan deliberately stood aside and relaxed his suppression of the python and mouse, just to observe the methods of these masters of the great realm of gods. After the 7 masters entered the battle state, they joined forces directly and displayed the spirit realm cooperation skill that Jia Yan was very familiar with. You know, Jia Yan had a huge headache because of the spiritual realm alliance skill. And it was precisely because of his trip to the great spiritual realm that he later relied on the joint skills of the great spiritual realm to train his subordinates and developed a joint plan belonging to Yin and Yang Dao, which was also the prototype of the subsequent joint techniques of Yin and Yang Dao. Even now, among the Yin and Yang Dao combined skills, the shadow of the divine domain combined skills can still be vaguely seen. Boom. Fortunately, my lord. Amidst the smoke, the 7 masters joined forces to kill the bound giant python and returned to Jia Yan happily. Well done. Jia Yan nodded, but still sighed in his heart. The divine realm is indeed the divine realm. Even with his current vision, the joint skills of the divine realm are also unique. But through the cooperation of the 7 stars, Jia Yan also saw the unreasonable shadow caused by the isolation of many backward areas in the divine realm. For example, pursuing the so-called power of faith too much causes their energy to be deformed. For example, the combat skills are out of shape, as well as the individual's utilization of energy, which are far inferior to those in a truly prosperous place. It's not as good as the Zerg Queen star domain, let alone the galaxy's central star domain. It is also in line with the strength level of the divine realm. Thank you for your compliment, sir. Although our spirit realm cannot be said to dominate the star realm, we do have some means. Those star levels actually floated up. Jia Yan really wants to say, do you know that in the central star field of the Milky Way, some genius-level stars can defeat 7 of you by one person? But when the words came to his lips, he didn't say them out. I am not the other party's real senior, so why should I mention these things? Wouldn't some people from backward areas be happy if they were allowed to live in their own world? This python seems to be good for our cultivation. When the masters of the 7 great gods and realms saw that Jia Yan had no interest in the corpses of the python and the giant rat, they involuntarily stopped and hesitated to speak. If you want, hurry up. I'll give you 3 minutes. Jia Yan said impatiently. Yes. The 7 masters were overjoyed and quickly started collecting, quickly decomposing the python corpses. This lord is so powerful that he doesn't even want such good things. Hey, it's just poverty that limits our imagination. Perhaps this gentleman comes from a more prosperous place than the divine realm. His superficial strength is at the venerable level, but in reality he is probably at the galaxy level. Do you know about the galaxy level? We in the divine realm don't have many galaxy level masters. I know. I have seen my God. It seems that he even uses divine dew when taking a bath. Does this gentleman also use divine dew to bathe? Hiss, Shenlu, no wonder I despise this monster's corpse. A few stars talk about themselves. Jia Yan sounded bored and a little funny. What kind of divine dew is not divine dew? Uninformed people really only use their own concepts of the world to imagine others. Jia Yan believed that they should be creatures with little knowledge and strayed into this world. Otherwise, if you walk more in the central star field of the Milky Way, you might be able to learn about rumors about the other world. This also eliminates the possibility of them plotting against me. Jia Yan thought calmly as he watched the group of masters from the divine realm quickly cut up the pythons and rat creatures into corpses. He would not trust people from the great spirit realm. He has not forgotten the hatred of being hunted, so how can he trust people in the realm of gods? Sir, this is where we will come. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3109. Your Excellency, you are laughing. Don't look at us like this. In fact, in the great realm of the gods, we also occupy the position of God King or even God Emperor. It was precisely because of what we said that the God Emperor rank was greatly shaken. Our Lord God came forward and asked the God Emperors to investigate the matter, and most of us were the persons in charge of that investigation. When we were investigating in the normal starry sky, we quickly noticed a large number of disappearances, and sent certain beings into the subspace. Unexpectedly, they also caused disappearances. Among them, there were 2 case files that caused us to enter in person. The real reason for this world. Those were 2 venerable masters. After entering this world, they killed a small creature from this world. And due to various reasons, they left this world again and brought the loot back to the galaxy. In the end, that small creature in this world was studied by us and found to be of great benefit to my spiritual cultivation in the great realm, so we personally took risks and entered this world. Unexpectedly, there was a way in but not a way back. Since then, there has been no turning back for decades. Jia Yan listened to the explanations of several powerful men from the divine realm around him, while observing what they called the place of arrival. This is a place not far away from when Jia Yan first came to the other world. Black God Jia Yan calmly looked at the jungle in the distance, which was the area where Jia Yan originally arrived. The distance between the two is only 100,000 kilometers. For the other world, 100,000 kilometers is not far. It's not an exaggeration to say it's close at hand. That is to say, this area must be related to the twisted and special place, otherwise the 2 groups of people would not have entered at different times, and the areas where they ended up being displaced would not be far apart. He once again realized the twisted subspace outside this area. Although it is not done by the real body, Jia Yan's clone, who is extremely sensitive to subspace, can still detect that there must be some kind of anomaly in the subspace outside this area. For example, the state of distortion no longer belongs to the level of more than a dozen subspaces, but is at most 13 or 4 levels. This weird place definitely doesn't belong to the outermost layer. Decades have passed, and the most twisted and weird place has obviously wandered to other places, just like the singularity that the real body realized when it emerged from the inner world. Same, maybe that twisted and weird place suddenly appeared randomly. Black God Jia Yan judged. First of all, one thing can be determined, that is, there has indeed been an abnormal distortion of space here. It is a certainty that the 7 of them will travel from here to the other world. This shows that these 7 people did not lie. That's fine, as long as you know this, the search for subspace anomalies and singularities in the future will be left to the real body. I only need to do other things within my power. After observing for a moment, Black God Jia Yan, who seemed to have found nothing, flew up from the ground. Facing the faces that were looking at him eagerly, he said calmly, I have been observing this area, whether I can find an opportunity to leave the other world, I have a gap in my heart. Sir, can you really lead me out of the world? Great, thank you, sir. Jia Yan interrupted the 7 people's extremely contrived flattery. They can't even compare to a hair on Leta's leg when it comes to flattering him. After all, a star-level powerhouse in the realm of gods has long been a high-ranking figure. Maybe he has never experienced flattering in his life, which is quite lame. Okay, now this matter has come to an end for the time being. I still have other things to do here. If you are willing, you can work under me. The benefits will be indispensable to you. When the time is right, I will naturally take you out of the world. Return to the galaxy. As long as you keep your word, I'm willing to serve you. Please let me wait as long as you please, sir. The 7 former high-level officials of the divine realm swore in all directions. Even people in the realm of God still know the laws of the universe, and they are not so naive. If you want to get something, you must pay for it, otherwise why would others give you benefits? If they want to let this tiny creature in front of them lead them out of the other world, then they have to be willing to be a beast, and maybe even pay the price with their lives. But otherwise, they wouldn't be able to find any chance to leave this forest, so they might as well give it a try. Since they are willing, the next thing is simple. Jia Yan regarded this group of powerful men from the spirit realm as his subordinates, although they could not be said to be of normal size, but they were far more normal than their own. He asked them to separate in several directions to investigate the whereabouts of the small human race. And in order to allow them, who were only around the star level, to master a certain level of self-protection, each of them was given enough formation power to last for a few days. These formation powers are borrowed from the true body. No matter how much they are emitted, they will not affect the state of the Black God Jia Yan. As for the real body, this little bit of mental power probably won't do any harm. This is the original territory of the small human race. In the dead of night, the little earthling figure silently closed his eyes and meditated on the ruins of the little human race's original territory. He is sitting inside a giant bowl-like structure. It's actually just a bowl, a broken bowl used by the little humans, but now it's covered in dust, so it's just a good idea to use it as a temporary home for the clone. A bowl with a diameter of hundreds of meters is a great thing to live in. I remember that the great elder of the small human race, that is, Bidili, although his strength is not the best in the mountains and forests, he is definitely a top-notch expert. The superficial strength of the middle-level star, but after the burst of Tau power, I am afraid that it will be compared to the outside world. Every star in the world must be powerful, and there are not many strong men in the mountains and forests who have this strength. Today's Jia Yan naturally looks down on the so-called middle-level and lower-level stars. But in this Zihao forest, those who mastered Tau power at the middle level of the stars were absolutely strong. However, the forces with such strong men were razed to the ground, and the entire tribe became a ruin. It must have been caused by a big force here. I asked those visitors from the great spiritual realm. They also felt that a war broke out in this area. It was just because they had just arrived at that time and were scared and did not dare to approach. Explore this place. Jia Yan did not absolutely want to find the little human race, but within a certain scope, he still wanted to repay the favor of taking him in. If it were not for the favor of the little human race, he would have been like the 7 people from the spiritual realm, living in the mountains and forests went out. With the strength he had at that time, he probably wouldn't be much better off than the 7 powerful men from the great spirit realm. In addition, Wu Pilot also helped me a lot and later became my subordinate. Since we have such a fate, we naturally cannot tolerate the loss of our former subordinate. The hazy night passed quickly, and in the early morning of the next day, some of the 7 powerful men from the spirit realm who had gone out had returned. The power of the formation given by the Master is indeed powerful. The villain encountered 3 major crises this night, but all were resolved by the power of the formation. He even killed one of the major enemies. When a first-level star warrior returned, his eyes looked at the black god Jia Yan with a stronger luster of worship. Even in the galaxy, it is rare to find a strong person who can bestow his own skills on others. This shows that the incomparably small and powerful human being in front of him may be the only one who returns to the galaxy. Although it seems that it should not be as powerful as the galaxy-level method, it is definitely not far behind. He is thinking that after returning to the Milky Way in the future, he will give advice to the 2 gods who are in power in the entire spiritual domain and recruit this person to become one of my gods makes the realm of gods even stronger. Of course, this matter is not clear-cut and needs to be considered in the long run. It's just a small trick. Since your array power has disappeared, it's not impossible to give you a few more, but you have to tell me what you have gained. If you don't gain anything, just go out and investigate in the future. Jia Yan said calmly. Naturally, he didn't know that he had already achieved the same status in the other party's mind as the supreme ruler of the divine realm. There is still some gain. Having said this, the stellar junior powerhouse cheered up and repaid his gains. After hearing this, Jia Yan's eyes lit up. Sure enough, things get easier when there are more people. This first-level stellar expert who was heading to the west, after investigating the surrounding area for 30,000 to 40,000 kilometers in one night, learned from several local intelligent beings the whereabouts of the small human race that was so prosperous here. Were they destroyed by some external force, and then some of the clansmen fled? Jia Yan thought in confusion. But thinking about it, if it weren't for such a big change, why would the small human race abandon their ancestral land and disappear? Other investigators who returned later also confirmed this matter. All intelligent life forms in the entire Zihao forest knew something about this matter. Of course, it's not that Jia Yan didn't think of asking before, he just didn't have time. Very good, you and others have done a good job. Since you have all consumed some of the power of the formation, I will supplement it for you. The purpose of your wait is to find this little human race, but this power is only I will make up for you this time, and try not to squander it like last night in the future. Even if I am strong, you are not meant to squander it like this. Yes. You must be lucky enough to live up to your fate. The 7 powerful men from the great god realm took on the role of subordinates very quickly. Especially after they experienced using the power of the formation to injure or even kill the powerful men who once dared not move at all, they worshipped and respected Jia Yan. Reaching the highest peak. I am willing to become the subordinate of such a powerful person. By the way, leave one person behind and leave the techniques of the spirit realm to me to study. After Jia Yan said this, the 7 stars were slightly startled. Then someone quickly agreed quietly. After all, if they do not conform to the wishes of the big man in front of them, they will not be able to leave the other world in their lifetime. In such life and death matters, the cultivation skills of the realm of gods can only be put aside. Moreover, with the strength of the master in front of me, I am afraid that studying the cultivation method of the Great Spirit Realm is just for the sake of hunting, and you still expect the other party to practice? Little did they know that Jia Yan had long been interested in the unique power cultivation method of the Spirit Realm, but he had never had the chance to master it in the past. Buzz. Within a giant tree that is thousands of kilometers away. The giant mosquito's true form, which is 50 kilometers away, is hidden inside, silently recovering from its injuries. This injury is indeed a bit tricky, but it also pushed my research on the power of the other world to a new level. Jia Yan thoughtfully returned to normal from the healing state. He realized something and felt that part of his spiritual power had been extracted and used by his clone. He didn't know what happened to this clone, but it actually used a lot of spiritual power. Fortunately, that level of extraction was not enough for him. It's just a drizzle, which can't affect Jia Yan today at all. No matter what the Black God clone does, it will definitely not be detrimental to him. When it returns and collects its memories, we will know what happened. Next, here's this thing. After a few days of healing, Jia Yan had roughly resolved the damage to his internal organs caused by the so-called guru. After all, he is an evolved beast, and it is his instinct to devour and digest external forces. Also gained many benefits. The next step is Jia Yan's real gain. This Dao heart is much larger than the Dao heart we got last time. Last time, 3 people shared the food. Now, this time, I am devouring it alone. The effect is definitely better. The giant mosquito's eyes sparkled. However, before the mouth part penetrated, he seemed to think of something and paused slightly. Only. After I devoured 1/3 of the Dao heart earlier, I have been in a state of confusion and distraction. Those two seemed to know something but hid it from me. At this time, I swallowed a whole Dao heart. Will there be more serious effects on the heart? Jia Yan is not a fool. Previously, he swallowed 1/3 of the Taoist heart, but as a result, he had a reaction like rejection. He himself knew this. On the other hand, Shuxing and Jiji did not have a similar reaction. There is something fishy about this matter. If you swallow 1/3, you will have that kind of reaction. If you swallow a whole one, will it have a more serious reaction on me? The mouth part that was about to penetrate Tao's heart suddenly stopped, and he fell into a state of indecision. If those two were present, Jia Yan might still be able to ask. Although the 3 of them are in a competitive relationship, if Jia Yan is willing to hand over some of the benefits, maybe the 2 of them will be willing to tell the truth. But the current situation is that the 3 of them have gone their separate ways and are temporarily out of contact. If it was just a rejection reaction like being hurt, he would just tolerate it. The problem is that the rejection reaction made him completely unconscious and confused. Before, he was even regarded as a thug by the 2 people because of his mental confusion. When the master attacked, he was left as the last one. As a result, he had to fight with the so-called guru fought fiercely. If he had been clearer at that time, he would certainly not have been dragged into a war situation. Then do you want to swallow this Dao heart? Jia Yan's eyes became uncertain. This hesitant mood only lasted for a short moment. He suddenly laughed to himself. Haha, sure enough. I'm afraid I'm still under the influence of that specific emotion now. If it were me in the past, how could I care so much? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3110. Jia Yan suddenly understood that he seemed to be in a state of confusion again. In the past, I had swallowed ores, star cores, and all kinds of materials. How had I ever been so timid and wavering? I've swallowed all kinds of mess, and I'm still afraid? I'm going to swallow you chicken neck thing. He thrust his mouthpart into Tao's heart. The process of swallowing was the same as before. The feeling was really good. I felt the power quickly enter my breath and then permeate my whole body. The speed of digestion is also commendable, because Jia Yan is not really devouring the so-called essence of Taoist heart, but is devouring something similar to the power of perception, so this kind of devouring is related to the strength and weakness of his absorption effect, and the speed is fast. In other words, the insights are summarized relatively quickly, and the level is almost close to the real insights from the outside world. It feels like this again. While he was devouring it, Jia Yan had a keen eye and carefully observed the mixed energy in Tao's heart. He soon found something. It was an energy that did not belong to the power of perception, and it poured into his heart as he devoured it. Logically speaking, this kind of energy is beneficial because it seems to contain great truth. But Jia Yan had an experience, and after careful investigation, he suddenly came to the conclusion that the reason for his confusion was deeply related to this energy. He didn't take it seriously last time, and had no time to pay attention to this inexplicable energy during the devouring process. But this time he figured it out. Resist this energy. He made a decision, but at the moment when the decision was made, something wavered in his heart. Why was he shaken internally by this energy? Not without reason. This power is Tao. He stopped swallowing in surprise, and most of his Taoist heart was stagnated at the front of his mouth parts. As Jia Yan slowed down his movements, the power of perception inside his body gradually stopped, but the remaining Tao power kept producing strange reactions. Huh! Jia Yan was stunned again soon. It turns out that the Tao power generated by the Tao heart and the Guru Tao power that invaded his body were linked together, and there were other reactions. There is no criticism, but integration. The power of the Tao is profound and unfathomable, and the truth contained in it will be difficult for me to understand for a while, so, should I resist or absorb it? The problem before Jia Yan is like a multiple-choice question. He believed that the two masters of the same level had far better control over themselves than him, so that they eliminated the power resistance during the last devouring. After all, their lifespan of at least several thousand years is not in vain. In terms of power control, they are a few steps ahead of Jia Yan. But he didn't rule it out. The two of them looked funny and had some bad thoughts. Instead of reminding him, Jia Yan was left in a state of confusion all day long due to the influence of Taoist power. Hey, those two are really not friends. He believed that if they were friends with whom they had a little friendship, they would remind him twice, but these two people did not. Should I resist it too? This Taoist power was able to hide its influence on his body and consciousness for so many days, which was already serious. However, he was a lower-level territory lord after all. Now that he discovered its effect, it only took a matter of minutes to get rid of it. But Jia Yan's heart was wavering. Daolai. The powerful people in this world control Tao power. Even relatively weak beings practice Dao power. After mastering Dao power, their strength is greatly improved. For example, Bai Dili, the great elder of the small human race at that time, had the physical strength of the mid-level star, but Jia Yan's primary star strength at that time could not beat him. You must know that at that time, Jia Yan had already surpassed the level to kill the enemy, which was enough to kill a powerful person in the middle or lower level of the star of the divine realm. Moreover, the great elder of the small human race must not be the only strong person at the same level in this world. It is precisely because of the existence of Tao Li that his strength is astonishing. But this matter must be grasped well, otherwise painting a tiger will not turn into an anti-dog. In the end, not only will you lose more than you gain, but it may also affect your own strength. Jia Yan is relatively aggressive in terms of strength, but he still has some sway in absorbing Tao power. Being clever is sometimes a good thing, but more often than not it is a bad thing. When it comes to the strength and consciousness of a late-level territory lord, One cannot be too cautious. And this is why Jia Yan is so tolerant. He is a person who often takes risks. And those two people of the same rank must have eliminated the Tao power the moment they noticed it. They would never have thought that they would absorb such a strange power at their age. People don't do this. To risk, or not to risk. Jia Yanfu's eyes were complicated. Recalling the reason for his confusion these days, he was a little entangled, because for these days, his mind was full of thoughts about great principles, and some questions he had never thought about in the past, and he was constantly searching for answers in his mind. In the process, he seemed to have a better understanding of the nature of things. Presumably, as long as those Dao powers are digested, it will have an indirect impact on his strength, and maybe some of his combat effectiveness will be increased. If a whole Dao heart is swallowed up this time, Dao power will have a greater impact. My state of confusion will last longer, but it will definitely have more benefits for me. I just don't know, the mind will it become permanent damage? The point where Jia Yan swings is right here. If there is an increase in strength, that is a benefit, but the increase in strength is obtained at the expense of brain damage, and he has to cry. Click. Suddenly, Jia Yan felt the clone return quickly. During this trip to the other world, Jia Yan was not able to lead more clones. Only the Black God clone was brought into the other world because of his talent and size. Well, the Black God clone came to the tree cave and immediately understood what happened to the real body. After the two come into contact, their respective memories and thoughts are connected. You go back and let 2 of the 7 people try this Tao heart. Jia Yan didn't hesitate for long, he directly plucked a small dot a few meters in size from the heart of the Tao, divided it into 2 halves, took a roll of spiritual power, and threw it to the clone. The clone caught it and jumped out of the tree hole without saying a word. It is impossible for him to affect the true body's concentration on absorbing the benefits. When I came back this time, I originally wanted to talk about the little human race, but I didn't expect that the true body's cultivation process was so dangerous. That Taoist mind is indeed extraordinary. Black God Jia Yan looked solemn, and without stopping, he quickly arrived at the meeting point 100,000 kilometers away. Sir, I just made a new discovery, that little human race. A strong man of the first level of the star had been waiting at the place for a long time. When he saw Jia Yan returning, he immediately came closer as if he wanted to take credit. But the Black God Jia Yan stopped his words and threw down a super tiny particle of matter. It's only 2 or 3 meters in size. Swallow this thing, don't worry, it's a benefit. It's a reward for your hard work in the past 2 days. Well. The other party looked stunned. He wanted to say that he didn't want to swallow this thing that looked extremely weird. But he couldn't resist Jia Yan's intense gaze. After hesitating for a moment, he sighed softly, opened his mouth and swallowed the tiny substance into his mouth. Anyway, it's only a few meters in size. For his huge body that can reach several kilometers, it's just a foreign object. He believes that no matter how terrible the substance is, as long as he has strong resistance, he will not die. Maybe the adult in front of me wants to test poison or something. Puff. The moment it swallowed up this tiny Taoist heart, the first-level star expert knew that he had guessed wrong. What is this? He shook violently. The heart of the Tao instantly melted at the entrance, and the strange foreign energy was like a maggot attached to the bone, directly causing massive destruction in his body. Ah! This majestic first-level master was rolling on the ground, looking in agony. Sir, what are you doing? Just as Jia Yan was observing this person's movements, several more figures emerged from the mountain forest. Among them, the stellar middle-level leader of the divine realm looked at Jia Yan with an extremely ugly expression. Don't worry, he won't die. For him, this thing is still of great benefit. How could Jia Yan know if he would die? I just used these remarks to reassure people. Hearing this, everyone who returned felt a little relieved, but their eyes were still full of worry and vigilance. It doesn't matter if his companions were killed or injured. They were afraid that Jia Yan would put them in the same position and use them for research later. Facts have proved that this concern is not unnecessary. When the tumbling star began to move and gradually stopped moving, Jia Yan knew that it would be difficult to achieve results for the time being, and glanced at the remaining people. The outsiders from the divine realm, headed by Xing Xing Intermediate, had their eyes twitching and stepped back involuntarily. Perhaps the stellar mid-level will be more effective. Come and give it a try. Don't worry, this is a God-given opportunity for you and others. Don't miss it. Black God Jia Yan said lightly. The mid-level star had a bitter look on his face, but he didn't hesitate for too long, nodded and stepped forward. Sir, if the villain is lucky enough to survive, that's fine. But if something unexpected happens, please let the villain's remaining brothers go. I'll do it. Jia Yan's reply seemed to confirm his intention to use these guys as a test, which immediately made the other party feel chilled. Open your mouth. Puff. The opponent opened his mouth wide and took the other half of the heart fragment Jia Yan shot into his mouth. In an instant, the mid-level star's expression changed drastically, and he began to cry out in pain. The 5 masters who were not treated as test subjects shrank to the side and looked at Jia Yan. Their eyes were no longer filled with reverence, but with a little resentment, but this resentment was deeply hidden. In front of a strong man who doesn't know the depth of his strength, they will definitely not show their hatred. Otherwise it would be impossible to die. Sure enough, the stronger the strength, the stronger the resistance and absorption of the Dao heart. Black God Jia Yan silently observed the performance of this mid-level star from the air, nodding from time to time. At a certain moment, he said with a gloomy face, "Don't expel that Tao power and swallow it. This thing is your great creation." The mid-level leader of the stars sighed and nodded. Then Jia Yan saw that his consciousness fell into chaos. It is very similar to the original chaos of Jia Yan's real body. Now the black god Jia Yan became serious. Look carefully at the other person's expression. You must know that this person's strength is at the middle level of a star. Although there is a huge gap in strength from Jia Yan's own body, they are both outsiders and they also practice cosmic energy, so they still have some reference significance. Moreover, what he swallowed was only a Dao heart of 1 or 2 meters in size, and the physical damage was not expected to be serious. I will examine myself 3 times that day. Quack, if you get the right way, you will get a lot of help, but if you don't get the right way, you will get little help. Subduing the enemy's troops without fighting is the best policy. Jia Yan listened to this person saying some mysterious words from time to time, and nodded again. This is the state of enlightenment. The ability of Tao Xin is indeed extraordinary. Even a mid-level star can comprehend something. Although on the surface it looked like he was mentally ill, Jia Yan believed that the other party would not collapse so easily. While speaking, the eyes of the primary star powerhouse on the other side suddenly widened, and the aura in his body increased explosively. Reached the mid-stellar level. And the carp stood up straight, opened its eyes and jumped up from the ground. Sir! Thank you for your kindness. The other party was so confused that he knelt down to Jia Yan. This one is not dead? Jia Yan was startled, he thought this was dead. You didn't lie dead on the ground and did nothing for a long time. Wouldn't it be a waste of another piece of Dao heart? But he thought so deep down, and he still did enough on the surface. Very good. It's as good as I expected. You've also benefited greatly. Come over here and tell me about your experience and insights. Yes. The other party's eyebrows were filled with joy and he stood in front. However, under the strange expressions of everyone, this person stood upright and walked, his steps staggering. You know, this guy was a reptile just a moment ago. Sir, after I swallowed that magical substance, I felt a very strong impact in my heart. It seemed that a large number of magical and powerful masters were instilling knowledge into me. In an instant, I knew that I had never thought of it before. A great truth that has never been explored. He talked eloquently, looked at his colleagues behind him, and said earnestly, at the same time, I understand better that our divine realm is not a real avenue, and the divine system followed in the entire realm is definitely not the long-lasting way. All friends, listen to me, and give up this way in the future. The eyes of the masters of the great spiritual realm behind him became even more strange. But Jia Yan didn't think as much as they thought. He glanced at the standing reptile and nodded from time to time. In the process of realization, this master has a vague temperament. In addition to the sudden increase in strength from the initial level of a star to the middle level of a star, the whole person gives people a kind of nervous feeling. Well, he doesn't admit to being mentally ill. Otherwise, the true body that has swallowed up so many Taoist hearts would be the king of mental illness. The so-called retribution is clearly manifested by nature. The path we and the divine spirit realm are taking is to control the people and the entire divine spirit realm. It is regarded as evil by countless forces from the outside world. We are destined to know this in our hearts. It is dangerous and abnormal. However, but we turned a blind eye for the sake of our own selfishness. This is the idea of evil heretics. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3111. If this God is, Ba, I am lucky enough to come up with it. I will definitely cleanse the realm of gods and restore a peaceful world to hundreds of millions of living beings. I wonder if you all have similar ambitions to me. The eloquent and talkative star beginner, oh no, now he is an intermediate star master. What he said was so logical that everyone was weird. Several masters who knew him looked at each other and then at Jia Yan, wondering if what they had just given him was some crazy medicine. Jia Yan said nothing and nodded with an enigmatic smile. That's right. Just as the nervous newcomer was speaking with dignity, a burst of laughter suddenly sounded. I saw the middle-level leader of the star lying on the ground without speaking for a long time. Oh no, he has been promoted to the high-level star now. I am so excited. It turns out that you are such a confidant in this way. After all these years, I didn't realize that you have such similar aspirations as mine. He solemnly jumped to the front of Jia Yan and others with his one-legged golden rooster, and said righteously, I have had this intention for a long time, but I didn't dare to take action because of all kinds of cowardice. Unexpectedly, in the team I led, I have a comrade like you. Brother. Comrade. The two acted out a brotherly love and hugged each other fiercely. Jia Yan's scalp was numb and he quietly retreated dozens of kilometers, the smile on his face was a little stiff. Speaking of which, I would also like to thank you, sir, for your finishing touch. That's right. Although we don't know what that thing is, it made us see our true feelings clearly. I'm really grateful. The two of them suddenly looked at Jia Yan and expressed their sincere thanks. Hey, you don't need to thank me, how do you and the other two feel now? After all, being suddenly promoted to a level will have some impact on the body and mind. Jia Yan said, meaning something. But these two old gods were present, and each nodded and said, thank you for taking care of me, sir. I am very good now, better than ever. I feel that the whole world is suddenly enlightened. Suddenly enlightened? Jia Yan was silent for a moment and finally nodded. He suddenly knew why. These two guys got the knowledge of Tao from that small piece of Dao heart fragment. However, this Dao heart is too vast and vast for them who have never explored and studied the nature of heaven and earth. His whole consciousness was shocked and his temperament changed drastically. I just don't know if the real body will have a similar effect, but at least it is a lower-level domain lord. The reason for the universe and heaven and earth is far beyond the star level, so it must not be like this. The second day. After observing the changes in his subordinates for several days, Black God Jia Yan arranged for them to continue their previous tasks. With the addition of two beings who suddenly gained strength, the task became slightly easier for them. He himself quickly left the place and headed towards the giant tree cave. Buzz. As we approached the tree hole, our consciousnesses began to communicate silently. When the avatar stepped inside the tree hole, Jia Yan's real body had already received all the contents without using his mouth. I see, is it the power of rules? The beholder is clear. Jia Yan himself was affected by the Taoist heart and could not judge anything yet, but from the perspective of the clone, after watching the evolution of the two, he could not understand the heel and foot. Dao Xian is indeed worthy of this name. He sighed. The absorption that had stalled at this time suddenly accelerated and continued the absorption process. If something goes wrong with the real body, I'll have to use my avatar to protect my safety. At this point in his soliloquy, Jia Yan has already released a large amount of formation power, covering the entire giant tree that is tens of thousands of kilometers high. You can naturally rely on the power of the clone, but it is not enough. When the power of the formation was passed down from the master of the formation doctor, it was mainly used for defense. It was just right to use it to defend oneself at this time. When the power of the formation spread, the clone Black God flew backwards silently and retreated millions of kilometers. If the real body makes such a decision, it won't end up like that. He had mixed feelings. After splitting into two consciousnesses, he also became less understanding of some of his thoughts about his true body. However, if the real person is stupid, he will not be able to reach the lower level of territory lord. He must have his own ideas. With a hiss, the Black God clone left the place. The giant tree just needs to come here occasionally to take a look. He still doesn't believe it. Under the guard of the power of the formation, what problems can happen here? Unless that guru or something like that comes after him personally. If I were to pursue him, would it be useful to use his clone to attack? Simply go and do other things. Sir, there was a huge commotion over there just now. I wonder if it was you who caused it? Thousands of kilometers away, the several masters of the divine realm who came back to report intelligence had uncertain expressions. Yes, it was caused by me. If you don't mention these things, how is your investigation going? The Black God clone's face didn't turn red and his heart didn't beat. The clone and the real body are indistinguishable from each other. Is it wrong to say that it was caused by him? The power of the array was released overwhelmingly, and the light could be seen for at least tens of millions of kilometers. Thanks to the shocking strength of his true body, he is not afraid of the ordinary masters around this area. Otherwise, after such a big drama, everyone would know that there is a shocking strong man there. It's like this. The small human tribe was attacked in this area, and then a small number of tribesmen fled. It is said that they went to the city to make a living. City. Black God Jia Yan was slightly startled, then thought about it and felt normal again. The real body originally came here and dealt with the young people of the small human race. They were extremely yearning for life in the city. Just because of ancestral precepts and practical factors, I had to suppress this thought. After being attacked, their first choice when leaving here was naturally the city. And speaking of cities, there was a little nostalgia on the handsome face of Black God Jia Yan. Grown-ups. It's nothing, I just thought of something. You did a good job. Now follow me to the outside of the forest. You have never left this forest. It is also a good opportunity for you to see the true civilization of the world. Okay. The City of Giants. To be honest, after traveling to so many places in the other world, Jia Yan has never experienced a pure giant city. But the big city outside Zihao Forest in his memory was exactly a city with a large number of giants. Revisit old places. In other words, for the clone, it is a place that only exists in the sea of memory and has never been to. This is. Oh my God, what a huge city wall. The several masters of the divine realm beside him were so jealous that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. You know, this city is similar to the major cities Jia Yan has walked through, with walls nearly 100,000 kilometers high. Doesn't seem unique. But on the outskirts of the city, among the life forms walking around, there are a large number of human-like creatures, and their size, even among the generally tall creatures in the other world, is unusually tall. There are many places that are over 1,000 kilometers long, and there are also places at higher altitudes that are 5 or 6,000 kilometers long. Giant race. Jia Yan knew that the tallest individual of the giant race reached tens of thousands of kilometers, and he had seen it in the mountains and forests before. Even if the strength is not equal to the real body, it is definitely close to the senior domain master. This is the city of the other world. Be careful. Although you are nothing more than a mote to them, you and others are nothing more than small animals. Don't appear in their eyes. Yes. Small animals. This statement made the seven masters feel weird. When did a dignified God-King level existence become a small animal in this world? But they, who are several kilometers in size, face creatures that are hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away, and can crush them with one kick. It is hard to tell that they are not small creatures. Next, find an opportunity and follow me into that city. Yes. Jia Yan knew that the huge city in front of him seemed to be unprepared for individuals like him, but in fact it was absolutely impossible to let down. Different from the Earth, the tall life forms here know that there are also a large number of intelligent life among the small creatures. Allowing them to break in at will cause hidden dangers. But all this is not a problem under the power of the Black God clone. Even the original real body was enough to break in. Although unique methods were used, how could it be difficult to inhabit the current clone? One after another, the power of the formations moved down. The people at the star level only felt that their auras, protected by the light of the array, became vague and non-existent. In fact, the principle is very simple, that is, to imprison them in the formation. The understanding of formations originating from the real body has already exceeded the level that the star level can imagine. As for whether they will be noticed by the guards when entering the city. If you notice it, give up on these subordinates and go in and search on your own. I don't really think that these people who met by chance have really become my subordinates. Fly with me. Jia Yan flew into the city gate majestically in front of the guards. The seven masters behind him were uneasy. They hid under several huge carriage-like vehicles. With the help of the concealment formation, they were not noticed. However, when passing by the guards, one of the guards glanced sideways at the bottom of the carriage, and everyone was shocked. He held his breath and concentrated, his hair standing on end. Fortunately, the guards didn't seem to see them. Entering the city gate, Jia Yan has been waiting for a long time. Sir, we won't do anything like this in the future. The guards, actually have galaxy-level auras. What a terrifying city. Several stellar-level experts all had ugly expressions on their faces. You must know that the defenders are behemoths at the peak level of several stars, plus 2 junior captains of the galaxy. The strength is astounding. If they are discovered, they are bound to be unable to escape, unless this adult, whose name they don't even know, is willing to help. Of course, no matter how stupid they are, they can still see that it is impossible for this adult to take the risk. How can you be used by me if you are as timid as a mouse? Jia Yan sneered and continued, however, what I said is not wrong. I want you to become rats. In this urban area, your future status may even be inferior to that of rats. Not as good as a rat. The seven people felt uncomfortable again. But after comparing their size with the normal intelligent creatures around them, they accepted this fact. Several children were running back and forth on the road, and they were all hundreds of kilometers tall. One foot fell and almost stepped on them. You know, here, even rats may be bigger than you. Oh, sir, what should we do next? Facing the anxious 7 masters of the great god realm, Jia Yan said calmly, follow me to visit the masters in this area. Lord Master? It sounds pretty cool. All the experts suddenly felt like they were standing tall. And this emotion, until he saw the master mentioned by the black god Jia Yan, suddenly turned into stunned disbelief. Hey, who are you waiting for? You dare to come to this controller's territory? Do you know that I am the strongest person in this area? The master's momentum is indeed extremely strong. What he said was also extremely domineering. However, what the masters of the gods and realms cannot accept is that this master is a big cockroach. And when this big cockroach roared such high-sounding words, he was lying in a garbage dump, chewing food waste dumped by ordinary people in the city. The strength is very strong, but only around the peak of a star. Maybe it can cause harm to ordinary families and children in the city, but this look, no matter what, cannot be combined with the impression they imagined of the master of District 1. My lord, are you mistaken? Yes, how can a guy like this who collects leftovers be a big shot? The words of several subordinates did not hide their words, which immediately aroused the overwhelming anger of the devouring cockroach. Hey, you dare to underestimate this master, go to hell. I saw the master flying up from the garbage heap, rushing towards the 7 people here with lightning and flint. His eyes were fixed on the strongest stellar high-level existence among the 7 masters. Because from the beginning to the end, the black god Jia Yan, who was only over 1.7 meters tall, ignored him as if he were a bacteria in the air. So he thought that the small team in front of him, relying on the strongest stellar high-level breath user, dared to cause trouble for him. And he is also a leader who has a very obvious sense of strength that has just broken through the ranks. Just like that, you dare to ridicule yourself as a garbage man? Die. Your Excellency, please do not take action. A gentleman should be virtuous and should not be impulsive. And the targeted high-level person who had just broken through the galaxy was. He was the strongest person who had swallowed a trace of Taoist heart before. Although he looked a little surprised, he said words that were incomprehensible. Not even taking any defensive action. In other words, there was no time to do it at all. Regardless of his newly promoted strength, his reflexes and thinking are still at the mid-level of stellar level. In other words, it will take a long time to digest his current strength. Opposite is a master. In the city, there is an entire area of small creatures that are masters. Even at the same level, his strength is definitely one of the best, let alone someone who is 1 level weaker than him and has just broken through. Puff. The newly promoted high-level leader of the star was blown away by a wing without any accident. Not dead? There is something. The other party was surprised. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3112. Generally speaking, ordinary small life forms will die easily after receiving a casual blow from oneself. Even if the opponent is only 1 level weaker than oneself, his attack power is still at the same level. One blow was fatal, not to mention someone who was weak by 1 level. Join forces. Just when he was surprised, the remaining masters of the 6 great gods and realms in front of him had already used a joint strategy. The joint strategy of the gods and realms is also something Jia Yan values very much. Black God Jia Yan, who originally wanted to take action, immediately restrained his thoughts and observed silently. Well-known skills in the realm of gods and joint tactics. The 6 stellar powerhouses joined forces, which was even more earth-shattering. They connected with each other and became a whole. Puff. The severely injured high-ranking star was able to get up even after suffering the trauma, flew into the battle formation, and turned into the formation I of the joint formation. The two sides once again had a fierce battle, but miraculously, the 7 people joined forces and tied with the master. As expected of the great realm of the gods, the methods are simply astonishing. Jia Yan was in awe. Many skills, from his current perspective, are not too bad. Who are you? The master looked extremely ugly. After being knocked back by a blow, he stopped attacking and kept his distance. I'm sorry, we acted a little rudely, but the 7 of us mean no harm. The high-ranking leader of the star stopped his fighting movements and responded breathlessly. Then what do you want to do? I was entrusted by someone to find my old friends. They are called small humans. I wonder if this friend has ever heard of this racial name. I haven't heard of it. Don't disturb me while I'm eating. Let's go. The giant cockroach waved its feet impatiently and flew back into the garbage pile, gnawing away. Looking at what he was eating, the 7 masters of the great spiritual realm felt a little nauseous. Why didn't I notice this just now? When they fought, they were in constant contact with the cockroach, so they must have been covered in garbage. Nausea. This is the master in the city, and there will be masters appearing every once in a while. What do you think of this kind of existence? Sir, the master is indeed worthy of his name. Only 7 of us can defeat him together. His strength is earth-shattering. Everyone was convinced. 2 of them have just been promoted in strength, and their overall joint tactics have definitely improved by leaps and bounds. However, they still failed to win a master, which shows that the opponent is much stronger than any of them. According to the words of the insignificant human adults, they turned their attention to the seemingly peaceful city blocks, and their expressions became somewhat solemn. In other words, in this neighborhood, there will be one such master for each section of the road. Creepy. You must know that the master is not only powerful. For example, the big cockroach just now was only at the peak of a star's strength. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to join forces with their 7 masters to achieve a draw. But he did it, which shows that he has excellent talent. Such a master still picks up garbage to eat? I understand. In the cities of this world, strong people have the habit of picking up garbage in order to hone themselves. Maybe it allows them to hide their shame. That must be true. Those ordinary residents don't look much better than the masters. Why do the masters still have to pick up food from the garbage? Jia Yan didn't speak all the way, and didn't answer any questions. Because they have to rely on their own eyes to discover the truth about the city. Boom. A passionate and terrifying tremor erupted next to the 7-star level powerhouses. Who? Such a terrifying aura is for someone with similar strength to me, so be careful. And when they looked around, they were all dumbfounded. It turned out to be several children 500 kilometers away from the city, squatting on the ground and playing games. The shock caused made them so frightened that they almost did not take any action on the spot. I understand. Finally, after deceiving themselves for a long time, they sighed. In fact, it is not the master who exercises himself and picks up garbage to eat. It's really because the master's status in the city is just that of a small animal. He can't survive and can only pick up garbage. Children are all at least astral level, and adult city residents are all at least star level. Jia Yan finally spoke. Yes, in this city, ordinary adults are at least close to the galaxy level. Breaking into the galaxy level is not a unique case. After the words were spoken, a group of people were even more stunned. Because they can't figure it out. I have never known any race to reach galactic level strength after reaching adulthood. But in the other world, it seems that city residents can have galactic level strength. When I return to myself and others to fight tooth and nail and survive countless disasters for the current junior and middle level combat power of the star, my mentality is a little unstable. But you don't need to sigh and be envious. Their level is just exchanged for future potential. Without early efforts, unless you have outstanding talent in the later stage, you will only be at the elementary level of the galaxy for the rest of your life. On the contrary, we, the people of the Milky Way, are more capable, make brave progress and advance to the intermediate star level or even the territory lord level. I see. Thank you, sir, for answering my questions. Everyone cheered up again and thanked everyone. But Jia Yan didn't say anything. It is normal for ordinary residents to make up the majority in the city, but in such a huge galaxy, there will always be many outstanding talents. If we really want to compare, the probability of being at the middle level of the galaxy or even the domain lord level is much higher than that of life in the galaxy. He wouldn't say anything so offensive. What I want you to do now is to spread out and go to various major areas to inquire about the information of the small human race. As far as I know, the small human race has always been yearning for the city. I think even if the whole family does not move, there will definitely be, it's only right that some people sneak into this place. This is. Regarding Jia Yan's mission, everyone present looked a little ugly. After knowing the dangers of the world city here, they became more vigilant about spreading out. But after such a long time, they became accustomed to obeying Jia Yan's orders. Moreover, with the power of the formation given by Jia Yan, he must be able to escape even if he encounters the master. With Jia Yan's order, the 7 people dispersed and left. Presumably, friction with the local experts is inevitable if he goes here. And Jia Yan himself was not idle either. As a clone, Black God Jia Yan's combat power is not very strong. But he has many unique abilities, and his wisdom is unique among all clones, so he cannot just wait for rewards from his subordinates. The City Lord's mansion, I wanted to go in and have a look when I came back last time, but now I can try it out. Jia Yan looked at the inner city, which was within hundreds of millions of kilometers away from the city gate, and seemed to be able to see the tall City Lord's palace standing there in the distance. Last time he wanted to enter the City Lord's mansion to explore, but his strength did not allow it. This time the clone comes again and is strong enough, so naturally he wants to take a look. Thinking about it, the clone of the Earthling, who was like a mote of dust, raised his half-long black hair and fluttered away. Recently, the small creatures have gone too far. Let them stop breeding for a while, otherwise the City Lord's palace will call on everyone to launch an insecticide operation. Yes. A tall and powerful being sat on a high platform, sorting out the documents on the table and approving them one by one. The messenger officers who received his order rushed into the execution hall at the rear as if at speed. Ouch! The tall, towering being yawned widely. He said boredly, if I had known that this so-called City Lord's job would be so boring, I would not be the City Lord. It would be too tiring and tedious. The Zaoli beside him quickly stepped out and said, although we also understand that the City Lord is busy with all kinds of things and is mentally weak, but please don't say that. Yes, billions of dawns are just waiting for you, the City Lord, to take care of you. Hey, are they waiting for the city? Just don't scold the city for being ignorant. The City Lord smiled, but the movements of his hands did not stop. When you reach their level, you already have the ability to be distracted several times. By the way, what I just said is not groundless. Those little creatures seem to have been plotting and discussing something since decades ago, and they have also set up a very mysterious organization. Are there any chess pieces you have arranged? What information are you sending back? Lord Wibbing City Lord, those little animals are gathering vaguely, saying that they want to fight for their status in the city. We and other chess pieces have already been prepared. When they gather together one day, they can send out the pest control troops. Let them do a big reduction in quantity. That's good, otherwise there will be more and more bugs, and the people will blame the city. The majestic creature is the City Lord, and the little animals he talks about are also the intelligent little beings under the master. In this city, All living things below 100 kilometers in size are called small animals, while those below 10 kilometers in size are called insects. When Jia Yan came to the city, he was regarded as an insect creature. At this time, it has upgraded from the original insect to a small animal. It's just that it's still far from the level of a real resident. Although the city has never publicly recognized the obligations and rights of little beings, their number is increasing day by day. They are cleaned up every once in a while, which triggers a greater chain reaction. This matter needs to be reported to the imperial court and inquired. We need to find a way to deal with it, otherwise it will cause a catastrophe one day. Yes, I still remember that 100 years ago, due to the increase in food production and improper management of food in the city next door, the number of small life forms skyrocketed, and eventually a locust plague occurred, killing and injuring more than 30% of the normal residents. We need to take warning from this matter. Zayalai and the city lord chatted about the past, and no one looked down on the little creature. Those life forms that are only 10 kilometers away have caused countless natural and man-made disasters under the entire dynasty. When they take office, officials like them must be trained on how to deal with small beings that are less than 10 kilometers away. Last time, there was a little guy who claimed to be the general controller. He wanted to discuss with the city, but he was imprisoned by the city lord, right? I wonder how this animal is doing now. It's not executed, but it's almost a specimen. I heard that the people in charge are trying to take action this time because of this life form. I wonder if we should release it to appease the hearts of the little beings. No, compromising on insects will make the general public doubt the ability of the city lord's mansion to handle affairs, wouldn't it? Yes, but it is not good for the person who is in charge to stay in prison. The city lord should make a decision as soon as possible. If you say this city also feels that it would be too early to deal with the matter. Let's do this. The execution will be carried out tomorrow. If we stop thinking about it, those little lives will no longer cause trouble. Yes. After the city lord finished handling all the affairs, he stretched himself and yawned greatly. Huh? The dust just now feels a little wrong. Maybe I think too much. I've been too tired recently. The dignified city lord, who was also a senior domain lord level guy, actually turned a blind eye to the tiny earthling body flying past his ear. There is no way, who makes the body of Black God Jia Yan be too small? Well, I seem to have heard something big and big. Black God Jia Yan's eyebrows wrinkled, and there was a slight suspicion in his sword eyebrows. Aren't the so-called small creatures just clones like me? Could it be that they are going to attack the tiny creatures in the entire city? It's a bit disrespectful to call them the pest control force. Even beings with the size of dozens of kilometers at the master level are called small creatures. A life form of more than 1 meter like a clone may not even reach the small life level. This is called the Black God Jia Yan is helpless. Angry again. But this matter has nothing to do with me. I am not familiar with those who control them. I am also not a native of another world. I have no relatives or friends, so it is completely impossible to help them. But Jia Yan noticed the scene just now. The so-called city lord, more than 1,000 kilometers high, was holding a pile of books and information. One of them is about little life information. Maybe there will be information about the little humans. In addition, my former subordinates can also try to find it. When he returned to his hometown, in addition to being concerned about the small humans, he also wanted to see how the subordinates who followed him were doing. If you can help, please help. Thinking of this, Black God Jia Yan was in a state of ecstasy, flying towards the city lord's desk like unsupported dust. I always feel like there was something wrong with the dust just now, and I can't see clearly now. The city lord is too huge, 1,000 kilometers in size, and it is difficult to see the people on Earth. They are not used to seeing small creatures, and their eyesight is not very good, and because what he felt just now is just a kind of vigilance, he will occasionally make mistakes. Maybe I'm overthinking it. The city lord yawned again and went to the harem of the city lord's palace. He still remembered that he had taken in a concubine a few days ago. Oh no. When the office was empty, the books on the desk flew up automatically, as if a supernatural event had occurred, and opened page after page. It's quite exciting to read a book with a page that is dozens of kilometers long and wide. The black god Jia Yan was flying high in the sky, his eyes widened. The fonts on the pages are each hundreds of meters long, larger than a football field, but it is very difficult to read. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju mobile version reading website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3113. Fortunately, although the black god Jia Yan is a clone, he is definitely not ordinary. After a while, he quickly got used to the weird feeling. Good fellow, there are so many races that are considered little animals in the city lord's mansion. And there are even more Zerg tribes, are even the small humans considered to be Zerg tribes? He quickly found an introduction to the little human race, but this little human race was not a small human race in the official description, but a forest elf. The elves have a similar appearance to the giants. It's just that their size has shrunk countless times. According to archaeologists' observations, the elves and giants were the same race as the giants tens of millions of years ago. As the times changed and the environment changed, the small humans finally moved towards after shrinking in size and evolving. The giants, on the other hand, grew bigger and bigger from generation to generation, and eventually became an indispensable race with top combat power in this imperial land. Tisk, the official said that the two are closely related by blood, but the giants are classified as noble, while the small humans are regarded as bugs. Such treatment. Jia Yan was amazed when he saw it. But this is the difference between strong and weak. Look at these population records. The giants are powerful, but according to official statistics, there are only a few million people in the entire Neo dynasty. As for the small humans, the number is too huge and cannot be increased. The estimated number is 6-7 billion, between high-ranking officials and bugs. Being noble doesn't necessarily mean you can survive. Jia Yan knows that this is the same as the powerful races in the galaxy. The stronger the race, the stronger the constraints will always be, and it may eventually perish without any disease or disaster. So looking at the final outcome of the two, it doesn't necessarily mean that the insect-like little human race loses. After reading the comparison between the two, Jia Yan began to search for local records of the small humans. Oh, it turns out that there is a powerful master among the small humans, so he united with a large number of small humans gathered from all directions to stir up trouble in the city. As for the city lord, the response was to launch an unprecedented pest control campaign, which not only targeted the small humans in the city, but also the large-scale small human gathering spots in the mountains and forests outside the city. I'm afraid Wu Pilot and the others in Zihao Forest lost their home because of this. Jia Yan nodded, finally knowing the reason why the small human race in Zihao Forest disappeared. He continued to read and understood the meaning of what the city lord and others said before. Recently, some small races have started to cause trouble, and the city lord is preparing to conduct another pest removal activity. After reading everything, a large number of scattered books were sorted by Jia Yan's brainwave power, restored to their original shape, and placed on the table. He took time to look at the door and said softly, "Your Excellency has been observing for a long time, so it's time to show up." Huh. There was a suspicious voice outside the door. As the sound came, a creature with a height of approximately 1,500 to 600 kilometers walked out. Its strength is close to that of the city lord, has reached the peak of the intermediate domain lord, and is close to the senior domain lord level. A long colorful tail trailed behind him, and his proud head was raised. In this part of the world, anyone who sees such a dazzling figure will exclaim advanced race. But Jia Yan's reaction was different from others. Rooster. He was slightly stunned. You know, among the races in the universe, there are many birds that look like birds, but so far, Jia Yan has never seen a race that looks so much like a rooster. I didn't expect there was one here. It is still 1,500 to 600 kilometers tall. How long does it take to eat chicken? What is a rooster? You little guy is a bit bold. Knowing that I am here, you can still be so calm and composed. It seems that you also think highly of yourself. The other party was stunned for a moment, then Yun Danfengking shook his head. The rooster's sharp beak pecked directly in the direction of Jia Yan's clone. It's like a rooster has seen a bug and is ready to take a bite. But to him, this little bug was as small as dust, and there was absolutely no way he could taste anything from this mouthful. You look down on me so much. Black God Jia Yan sighed. Being short means being looked down upon. Therefore, boys need to grow taller and play basketball from an early age. Otherwise, if it is less than 1,500 to 600 kilometers long, even a rooster will look down on you. But it's all concentrated essence. Don't underestimate me. Black God Jia Yan laughed, and formations of brilliance suddenly evolved in his hands. The masters in the city are obviously not too bad. They are stronger than the Pinkayu city they attacked before. This must be because they are also inside the mountains and forests. He thought to himself that the Black God clone could not defeat the opponent. But the Black God clone is by no means without backhand power. What the hell is this? The pecking that the rooster was proud of had no effect at all. It was blocked by an invisible light. Although this light was quickly pecked to pieces by his beak, and then another light was pecked violently. Repeatedly, a large amount of formation power blocked the front of his mouth, alternating layer by layer, until in front of Jia Yan's black-haired and black-eyed head, 10 layers of formation power were superimposed and blocked in front of him, forcibly blocking this person. The attack that came close to the senior domain master was blocked. A little bug that can stop me from attacking. The other party's expression suddenly changed. Although he did not see any aura comparable to his own in the black-haired little dust face, the skills the other party performed, whether it was his own energy or not, also showed that he had this ability. I can't keep you. The little bug wants to overthrow the world, and such a terrifying strong man appears. This matter must not be tolerated by the normal strong people in the other world. He suddenly felt a bolt from the blue, and colorful energy gathered around him. Daolai. Black God Jia Yan's expression was solemn, knowing that although he had used the spiritual power of his true form to withstand the opponent's blow, his actual combat power was definitely far from being comparable to that of the opponent. So, he retreated violently, and at the same time, he was hooking something. Soon, he felt the familiar artistic conception and feeling. As expected. Puff. Just before the chicken beak came again, and this time the strength reached more than 10 times that before, making it absolutely impossible to resist. Black God Jia Yan looked at the opponent with clear eyes and a frosty look, and then take a half step back. At the same time, the chicken's beak pecked the entire area where he was. The chicken's beak, which was dozens of kilometers in size, was overwhelming, with the overwhelming force of swallowing up mountains and rivers. If he had stayed where he was, there was absolutely no way he could escape this disaster. But Jia Yan was no longer where he was. What? Disappeared. The so-called Fuyi rooster felt dumbfounded and looked at the area he had pecked in front of him. His whole body felt bad. A small insect as small as a dust particle, probably not even a bug, but a gadget comparable to bacteria, actually escaped under his nose. This makes him boast that he is a master who can be compared with the city lord. How can he have the face to brag to his colleagues? Where did he go? He looked around with an ugly expression. What's wrong? Did you just burst out with strength? Just as he was looking around, another steady voice came. It was the city lord who had just left for a rest. It's like this. I just saw a little insect, but... He spoke in detail, and the city lord's expression changed slightly from time to time. You mean, that little bug suddenly disappeared? How is this possible? I thought it was impossible, but it happened like this. I'm wondering if he entered the there we have felt in recent years. Absolutely impossible. There was a master catcher who tried to communicate with that place before, but the price he paid was an arm. Have you forgotten? So I think it's impossible, but other than that, there is no other explanation. Allow me, the city lord, to investigate more carefully. As expected. Just when Fuyi and the city lord were checking suspiciously in the office, Black God Jia Yan was also slightly surprised, standing in a space, and his expression was a little excited. Subspace. Yes, he actually used subdimensional methods to escape the attack of a senior domain master. Although speaking of it, subspace is absolutely impossible to enter in the inner world. It's not that it's impossible to enter, but that the other world is in the very depths of subspace. Once you get out of the inner world, you will directly face a subspace that is close to 20 degrees. Even Jia Yan's true body cannot withstand such a power of subspace distortion. But there are exceptions to everything. For example, in this Zihao forest area. It was originally a place of distortion and instability, and when Jia Yan arrived decades ago, he had been using his subspace talent without any major danger. Of course, he tried not to use subspace abilities to fight at that time because he felt at that time that the subspace in this area was extremely unstable. In other words, the small area he could enter was only it is unstable, where the outside world is stable. He dared not enter. To this day, the place where the clone Black God enters is also such an unstable place. I just wanted to give it a try. Otherwise, unless I let the real body do it myself, I would have no chance of escaping. The Black God clone let out a long sigh. Fortunately, the risk was successful. By the way, it also helped Mommy figure it out. Speaking of it this way, as long as you keep moving around the Zihao forest, subspace is a method that can be used occasionally. Doesn't it give the real body one more trump card? His eyes were intense and he was thinking. Then observe the outside world of subspace. Black God Jia Yan later realized that he was drifting outside the city lord's palace in the normal world space. He tore open subspace and drilled out. Looking at the subspace crack behind him, it slowly closed after causing the unstable effect of lightning and thunder, and his expression naturally showed understanding. There are probably reasons why subspace is easily distorted in this area, why it is easy to cause instability, and why it has superficial contact with the realm of gods. Probably some phenomenon occurred deep in the subspace, causing this situation to occur. But now is not the time to explore. He calmed down his emotions. Since subspace can be entered in some form and has the characteristics of wandering, it means that he can also use the unique talent of subspace in this area. Even the clone is so easy to move in the subspace, the real body may move to more areas. Jia Yan was very satisfied. Tell the real body the news when he comes back. Don't worry, I have already anticipated this. It's better to go find the little humans first. The database just now was of great help to me. I learned a lot about the little humans and where their largest settlement in the city is. The small humans still have quite a lot of influence in the city. Of course, this is quite big, and it is at the level of the insect race. From the perspective of ordinary residents, they are really no different from ordinary bugs. Stealing food, causing damage to homes, often causing mischief, and causing noise nuisance, quite a few pest control companies exist because of them. First of all, Go over and see if the subordinates have found anything. If not, just follow the places in the city lord's information and search there one by one. Jia Yan made a calculation and his figure suddenly moved. Under the road, there is a wild dog-like creature, roaring towards Jia Yan in the sky. This wild dog is too sensitive. Even a dust-like creature like me can feel it. Jia Yan watched with relish. Wild dogs can be hundreds of kilometers long. In this abnormal world, even he himself had the illusion that he was a small animal. But in fact, although the people on Earth are indeed not a large race in the galaxy, there are actually a huge number of races that are even smaller than the people on Earth. In the other world, if you take a wild dog casually into the outer starry sky, it will cause tremors in the entire galaxy. How can I casually see a creature that is 100 kilometers in size? That has exceeded the level of life that the normal starry sky can accommodate. As for the giant race that is tens of thousands kilometers in size, well, such a terrifying existence would frighten even the domain lord to death if it left the other world and entered the normal starry sky. After all, a creature as huge as a planet has never been seen or even heard of in the Milky Way. Sir, you are back. It's been really miserable for me to wait for the past 2 days. If it weren't for your help, I would hardly be able to see you. Yes, those local masters are simply a bunch of monsters. We have only traveled 12 million kilometers, and we are being chased by these so-called masters, as if we have invaded their territory. As soon as Jia Yan returned to the area where he killed the master of the big cockroach, the 7 scarred gods from the great domain star class gathered around him like pouring out their bitter words, talking all over the place. He couldn't help but smile. Even with the formation methods provided by themselves, I am afraid that these guys will definitely suffer a lot when facing the masters. It was expected. But I've said before, you are working for me. If you can't defeat the master, won't you take a detour? There are so many weak lives in the city. It's impossible for 1 or 2 of them to die because of the master. It's impassable. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3114. If you can't fly over, why don't you lie down on the ground and walk for a while? Can you bow and kneel to these masters? If you are not willing to experience this little humiliation, you won't have to do things for me anymore. Yes, I know how to do it. This group of originally high-ranking gods and stars had a bitter expression on their faces. They understand what Black God Jia Yan means. Isn't it just to be humble and act like a grandson? Thinking back, the 7 of them were almost all giving orders just now. Not to mention being groveling, they were also preparing to fly over the territory of those who controlled them, flying overhead. It's weird if they let you pass. In this city, the people with the highest status are those at the top of the city, followed by ordinary city residents, then ordinary foreign creatures and pets, and finally, the turn of small creatures, like us. At this time, the 7 powerful men from the great spiritual realm discussed each other for a moment and came to a conclusion. Then they bit the bullet, changed directions, and left in different directions. Presumably, they know how to do things this time. Jia Yan smiled jokingly. The most he could do with these guys from the stellar realm was to play around with them. After all, they were all fellows from the Milky Way. Besides, he would need these guys to test something later. I didn't really think about what they were doing for me in the city. Over there, I'll go take a look. Jia Yan recalled some memories from his real body, his eyes lingered in a certain direction, and he stood up after learning. The earthling figure turned into dust, unexpectedly acted very conveniently. Because the residents of the entire other world, even if they are as powerful as the city lord, will not specially observe the dust-level earthling Jia Yan. That's impossible to see. There are too many things in the microscopic world and they are too complex, so it is better to keep them out of sight. As a result, Black God Jia Yan kept flying on the road, leaping past several strong men who were probably at the middle and lower levels of the galaxy, but they ignored them. Like an invisible man. This trip was originally to find his former subordinates, but what Jia Yan didn't expect was that his subordinates had long since disappeared in the open space, but unexpectedly discovered some races he wanted to see. Little humans. Among the large number of ordinary creatures, there are only a few small humans. Ha ha ha, you little human looks like a giant, but you have more food than the giants. Bring me something. A little human boy was beaten until his nose was bruised and his face was swollen, dripping with blood. The beetle-like creature wore gloves on its fists. It made an uppercut with its left hand, a swinging punch with its right hand, and then a set of combination punches, making the little human unable to fight back. Stop it! The two small humans rushed into the fighting circle, but this caused more creatures from other races to attack them. You little humans are still reasonable. What? Do you think we stole your things? If you little humans hadn't caused trouble, would our little animals have been so tired? It is said that there has been another pest control campaign recently. What harm have we done to you? Bring me the stuff. The food in the hands of these little humans was snatched away by the other party. And he also got beaten. In addition to the few little humans who were being beaten, several little humans poked their heads at the entrance of the sewer, wanting to help, but they were wavering and hesitant. Tisk, tisk, is this little human race so defeated? Jia Yan watched this scene from the air. The ones he didn't recognize were probably local small humans. Anyway, they were very different from the little humans he saw in the forest. How united we were at that time. Those here wouldn't dare to fight back even if they were beaten. However, this matter sounds like it is related to the incident when the city lord was discussing with others last night. According to the documents on the city lord's desk, the small humans once caused trouble in the city some time ago and almost caused a catastrophe. Therefore, the status of the small humans among small creatures has also been reduced. Jia Yan thought for a while and didn't take any action, just waiting for the incident to be over. After the beating, the group of teenagers with various creatures cursed and left. Well. An elder of the small human race came out of the hiding place and sighed. Elder, our little humans really just have to be beaten. Why not let us resist? In the worst case, we will have to fight them. Several young people were filled with indignation. The elder helped the injured little human and sighed, you don't understand. They beat us, but they won't kill us. We, the little human, have really harmed the entire city in recent years. The movement has started, and tens of thousands of small creatures from the He clan have been killed or injured. Now they just beat us up, which is considered to be taking good care of us. Just bear with it. Several young people suddenly became furious. We were not responsible for what happened at that time, and our clan was not even involved in it. Why should we bear the responsibility for this crime? In their view, we little humans are all the ones to blame, and that's indeed the case. Yeah, that guy who committed the crime really deserves to die. Several small humans were distraught on the ground. But they didn't dare to say anything more, and chose a covered method to enter their lair in the sewer. Jia Yan quietly followed behind these guys and flew underground. Although they are called small humans, each of these guys is several kilometers in size. In comparison, the Earthlings who are more than 1.7 meters tall can be regarded as ignoring the level. Jia Yan was still thinking that since the tribe was so self-destructive, the place they lived in must not be very good, and the sewers would definitely be dirty and smelly. Unexpectedly, he actually arrived at the place, and he was immediately amazed. After going around a few times, this group of little humans entered a cave that ordinary city residents couldn't reach with their arms. Inside the cave, there was a different world. Not to mention splendid, but a small city with quite elegant and artistic decoration appeared deep in the cave. There are at least 1,000 little humans living in this small cave. There are lights and colorful decorations inside, and the power source should be something like batteries discarded by normal residents. Sure enough, they look like humans. They are creative wherever they go. They are even more advanced than the little forest humans we saw before. Jia Yan was very impressed. Based on the social status we saw before, the small humans still managed to develop like this in the sewers. It's no wonder they were able to emerge from the existence of rebelling against the leader of the large resident creatures. Yes, Jia Yan admires the so-called leader. Snapped. I've heard some new news again. This time the news is from the city lord's mansion. A friend of mine is a cockroach tribe. Their race has spies in the city lord's mansion. They say they are going to launch another pest eradication campaign recently. What? It's pest control again. Could it be that the city lord is planning to kill all the little humans like us? It shouldn't be enough to kill them all. He wants my little human race to disappear from the city, right? Why, we small humans are also divided into urban small humans, and some of them have been in the city for more than 10 generations. Why does he want to expel us so casually? Jia Yan was in a state of ecstasy when he came to the little human tribe's director's hall, a metal house made of things that looked like cans. 7 or 8 small humanoid creatures of considerable age were communicating with each other in indignation. After arguing for a while, I couldn't come to a good conclusion. They are just an ordinary branch of the small human race in this big city, with a total population of only more than 1,000 people. In fact, even if something is discussed, it will not affect the overall situation. Jia Yan can also see that these guys are just like respected people in a small village. Although they may have prestige, they have no practical talents. After talking for a long time, the basic conclusion reached was to wait and see. See how other small human tribes react before they make a decision. This group of guys must not be able to make such a decisive decision to evacuate or join the battle group. No courage. Jia Yan thought for a while. Several elders of the small human race stood up and prepared to end this lengthy but meaningless meeting. I don't think it's okay for you to wait like this. Suddenly, a majestic voice sounded above their heads. Who? Huh? Someone. Assassin. No, I didn't see anyone. This group of elders were so frightened that they were stunned. Some old men held their heads and hid under the table, while others fell down and remained silent. Jia Yan felt a little regretful. He couldn't afford to pay for scaring these old men. Fortunately, these elders were able to attend the meeting. Even if they were not good enough in actual combat, their superficial strength still reached the stellar level. Hey, no, what is that? Let me see. What a small creature. Hiss, what's going on? Are my old eyes dizzy? It seems like human. Someone smaller than our little human race? How is that possible? Little humans. Never heard of it? Why are they so small? Where is it? I can't see it. Stellar level eyesight is still acceptable. Even though there were many people present who were dim-sighted, most of them saw Jia Yan's true face in Lushan when he showed up deliberately. For a while, all the elders of the small human race were amazed and terrified. They have lived their whole lives, some of them have lived hundreds or thousands of years, and they have never heard that there is a human race smaller than the small human race in this world. Like dust, what is the concept? It's like being a human on Earth, seeing a human race the size of a ballpoint pen tip, it's extremely strange. Did you speak just now? Little man. An elder looked at the black-haired human being who was drifting away in the wind, as if it would be blown away by the wind casually. He quickly ran over and closed the window to prevent the little man from being blown away. That's right, I'm talking to you right now. Although Jia Yan is small in stature, his voice is not soft at all, and he has no problem communicating with them normally. Hey, you can really talk. Where is it? I can't see it. Jia Yan smiled and flew to the table, looking up at the many elders looking at each other. I am also of the human race. I come from a race called the Earth race. I have met all the elders. What a polite little man. Where is it? I can't see it. Several elders were amazed. They live in hiding in the city, and generally do not have a very advanced education. Moreover, the population of this race is too small, more than 1,000 people, and it is impossible to build an education system, so they are not well educated. Little man, are all the races on Earth like you? How can we live like this? That's right, the little humans like us are already extremely small and live at the bottom of the entire city. I didn't expect that there are smaller humans than us. How do you live? No, his strength seems to be pretty good, venerable level. Hey, look carefully, he seems to be as star level as us, awesome. Where is it? I can't see it. Elder son, I know your eyes are dying, shut up. Oh. Looking at the long-winded elder who was being scolded, Jia Yan smiled slightly. If other people don't scold this guy, he can't help but beat them up, which is a bit annoying. What follows is a normal conversation. Jia Yan's purpose is simple. That is to use this villain race to see if we can find the original forest clan. Secondly, we want to see what happened in the city. I remember that a few decades ago, our little human race had a character who was quite unbelievable. He led our little human race to a glorious period, and even came close to making the little human race a legal city. A major breakthrough in the identity of the residents, but unfortunately, in the end, due to the huge power of the city lord, it failed. When talking about the past with Jia Yan, the attitudes of the elders were completely different from those of the ordinary little humans outside. Their eyes were full of pride and unwillingness. To them, the so-called little human sinner is actually a hero. Jia Yan roughly summarized what the so-called leader of the small human race had done in the past and what his status was. He said, "Several elders, do you have any ideas for a breakthrough in this current situation? To be honest with you, I went to the city lord's mansion yesterday and found out that they were carrying out a new round of elimination. Operation Bug, if you continue to be so ignorant, maybe a disaster is just around the corner." What? Are you serious? No, you can sneak into the city lord's mansion, old man, why do I not believe it so much? Several elders were stunned and then frowned. A few people who didn't want to believe it, their eyes full of suspicion and coldness, looked up and down at this dust-like creature that was only 1.7 meters tall. They were wondering if this guy was here to trick them. Lure these more than 1,000 little humans out so that they can all be caught in one fell swoop. But thinking of this, they didn't want to believe it. Because it's not worth it? To put it bluntly, he had never seen this 7'7" little human race before. It must be an extremely rare race. It would be more cost-effective to study it or keep it in a zoo than to use it to deal with more than 1,000 of them. That's a lot. Elders, you doubt that I can do it, but I have a clear conscience for what I said. You can decide for yourself whether you believe it or not. Jia Yan had some free time and looked at the many small humans in front of him. Even though he mentioned race, he was still regarded as a little human race, and the Earth race mentioned just now seemed to be ignored. These guys are not deaf, why? I just feel that I belong to the same ancestor. I want to help you, otherwise I would not show up rashly. If you don't believe it, I will leave now. Etc.